A mysterious energy called mana quietly flows through all things. However, only certain beings can control that mana, and they are called mages. A young man named Kanato readies himself, announcing that he is one such mage. This is Kanato, who took over the family business. In his town's Seitai clinic, he uses his unique magic for pelvic realignments and fascia releases, helping people realign their bodies and energy. The story is set in the country town of Manhwa, in the eastern part of the Ruhuna kingdom. A satisfied patient leaves Kanato's clinic, thanking him for his help. The man praises Kanato's incredible magic, saying it fixed him up in no time. A blushing Kanato is simply glad to hear it. Another patient credits Kanato for keeping him healthy enough to work, but Kanato humbly insists he's just doing his job. This is Kanato, the town's dedicated Seitai practitioner. He also points out that he used magic to heal a wound on the other patient's arm. The patient expresses his respect for Seitai magic, while a flustered Kanato claims it's the only thing he's good at. The patient speculates that adventurers from the guild must be even more incredible. He mentions mages who can shoot flames, a stark contrast to Kanato, who self-deprecatingly agrees his magic is only for therapy. As Kanato finishes his appointments for the day, he's interrupted. A girl's voice calls out to him from a distance. The innkeeper's daughter, Linny, enthusiastically runs up to greet him. With sparkling eyes, Linny asks how much money Kanato can lend her, much to his dismay. He protests that he doesn't have enough, but Linny playfully puts him in a headlock, asking how he can deny his adorable childhood friend. Kanato cries out in pain, begging Linny to stop before she splits his head open. Linny releases him, apologizing for being too rough. She wonders aloud why her plan failed, quoting a book that suggested physical touch would make him lend her money. Kanato demands she throw the book away. Kanato confirms she was joking, and Linny says they can get down to business. She then presents a wilting potted plant, which she seemingly pulls out of nowhere, surprising Kanato. Linny explains that a guest at her inn is heartbroken because her favorite plant has suddenly started wilting. She had hoped to buy a new one for the guest, but she's short on cash due to her part-time jobs. As Kanato examines the plant, he can feel its energy. He tells Linny that the plant's mana is all jumbled up. Realizing plants also have mana, Kanato wonders if he can use his magic to adjust its flow and save it. Linny follows his instructions, drawing out withered parts and adding water. Kanato then prepares to cast his spell, announcing Seitai magic, acceleration. The plant instantly springs back to life, much to Linny's astonishment. She praises Kanato, exclaiming that the plant is buff and healthy again. Kanato is just glad it worked out. When she asks if he can do the same for her, he clarifies that this technique is too strenuous for people. A man's voice suddenly shouts, "Excellent." The man, flanked by two others, applauds Kanato for his impressive magic. He approaches, stating that he's heard all the rumors about Kanato being the only mage in town. Linny whispers to a confused Kanato that the three are adventurers who are asking about magic users at the inn. Kanato stares at the approaching adventurers, taken aback. Adventurers? They are guild members who travel the world on missions ranging from slaying monsters to guarding kingdoms, making them undeniable experts in combat. The adventurer leader says that according to Linny, there's a powerful mage here. Kanato humbly denies being powerful, while Linny waves goodbye to other patrons. The leader dismisses his modesty, noting that Linny spoke of his great contributions to the town. With a snap of his fingers, he says that after watching him, he had a realization. He dramatically concludes that Kanato's magic has the power to control not just plants, but all of nature. Kanato corrects him, explaining that his Seitai magic is purely therapeutic, meant to help with bodily ailments. The adventurer questions the term Seitai, as Kanato explains he just applies it to accelerate regeneration. Kanato gives a small demonstration of his power. The adventurer is amazed, exclaiming that his shoulder isn't stiff anymore. As the adventurer marvels, Linny watches from the counter, dying of embarrassment. The adventurer snaps his fingers, declaring that simply being able to use magic makes Kanato special. He then says he has a favor to ask and wants Kanato. He asks Kanato to join them on a trip to the southwestern forest to help slay a dragon. Kanato is utterly shocked by the request. The adventurer insists that Kanato's Seitai magic will be a big help in keeping the party in shape for the battle. The adventurer promises payment for his services. Linny gets excited about a referral fee, but expresses genuine concern for Kanato, who asks for time to think it over. Kanato voices his concern that his magic isn't strong enough, and he'd just slow them down. He looks down, stating that he believes he is aware of his own limits. The adventurer agrees and gets up from the table. The adventurer says they won't force him, but they'll be waiting at the town gates tonight for his answer. He adds a warning: if the dragon is left to run wild, it could become a threat to the town. That evening, Linny calls the situation a waste. As they walk, Kinato apologizes about the money situation. Linny clarifies she wasn't talking about the money, she was talking about his dream. She reminds him how, since they were kids, he always wished he could be an adventurer and help tons of people. Linny clarifies that she thinks it's a waste for him to never follow through on his dream. Kinato is left to ponder her words under the night sky. He recalls the adventurer's claim that even his magic would be a great help. He stands outside the Manhwa Seitai clinic, contemplating his decision. Kinato arrives home and greets his grandma. He tells her that some adventurers asked for his help. He voices his fears, wondering what he should do if the town is truly in danger from a dragon. His grandma listens patiently, then retrieves something. She presents him with an old book, the Seitai Treatise. She tells Kinato that he is a wonderful Seitai practitioner and she would be proud to send him off anywhere. She remembers how he has always been a kind boy who helped her so much. Her words give him resolve and he clutches the book tightly. He thanks his grandma for her support. With newfound determination, he heads to the Manhwa town gate where the adventurers await. The adventurer leader sees Kinato arriving at the town gate. Kinato runs up, apologizing for his tardiness. With renewed determination, he asks them to please take him with them. The adventurer leader is pleased by his decision. Kinato explains he wants to see if the skills he's learned so far can be helpful. Kinato admits he's nervous, but he declares that he really wants to find out how far he can go. The adventurers grin, and their leader agrees. He suggests they head out into the night. The group ventures into the dark forest. As they walk, Kinato asks if they have a strategy. The leader repeats the word thoughtfully, before snapping his fingers with a knowing smile. Suddenly, Kinato is grabbed from behind, as the leader reveals their strategy was just to lure him to this spot. The leader scoffs, lamenting that Kanato's magic is only Seitai. He then reveals that they aren't adventurers, and there is no dragon. However, he adds ominously, people who can use magic are truly special. The man reveals his true intention: mages can be sold as slaves for a large sum of money. The men laugh as they lead him to their hidden camp. Kinato is forcefully shoved into a cell. He's thrown to the ground, trapped. Inside the cell, Kinato discovers another bound captive, who is casually eating grass. Kinato stares in horror. The other boy quickly explains that the grass is edible, but Kinato is aghast that this is his primary concern. The boy explains it's sugar grass, which is rich in minerals, insisting he doesn't normally eat grass. Kinato uncertainly accepts the explanation. The boy is relieved, saying he doesn't want a younger kid to hate him. He winks and suggests Kinato call him Big Bro, an offer Kinato immediately shuts down. Kinato sighs, realizing he was totally duped by fake adventurers. The other boy tells him to remember that real adventurers wear a special badge, showing one of his own and shocking Kinato. He introduces himself as Jean, the real-deal captain of the Adventurers Guild, the Iron Fangs. Kinato is shocked to learn he's with a real adventurer. He can't believe he's with the captain of a guild. Kinato bluntly asks how a captain could possibly get captured. Jean explains he was tracking smugglers and was in the middle of breaking their bones when one escaped. Kinato is horrified. He chased after him, but was tempted by free food samples on the street. Unfortunately, the food was laced with sleeping medicine, and he fell right into their trap. Jean thinks the story is hilarious, but Kinato strongly disagrees. Jean changes the subject, noting that the magical rope binding them is a real pain. Jean explains the magical rope tightens when he struggles, and is also draining his mana. He's been captured for a while and only has a little bit of mana left. An idea sparks in Kanato's mind. He tells Jean he thinks he might be able to get them out. He plans to use what his grandma taught him, Seitai magic. Jean questions how Seitai magic could possibly help. Kinato compares the magical rope's tense mana to a contracted muscle. He reasons that while he wouldn't use this application on a person, it might work on the magical device. He resolves to channel his Seitai magic through the rope and adjust its mana flow. With a cry of Seitai magic, relaxation, Kinato unleashes his power on the ropes. The ropes fall away and he celebrates his success. Jean watches in stunned silence, simply uttering, "Wow." Kanato quickly moves to free Jean as well. Jean thanks Kanato, impressed by his skill. Kanato urges them to hurry back to town, but Jean points out the guards keeping watch outside. With a confident grin, Jean tells Kanato to leave the guards to him. One of the slavers chastises another for not keeping watch. The smoking man scoffs, certain that the complex magic on the ropes makes escape impossible. As the slavers laugh, Jean leaps down towards them from above. Jean lands with explosive force, sending the unprepared slavers flying. He managed to escape. The slavers shout in panic, realizing their captive has escaped. Jean reveals his power, conjuring dozens of guns from the rock wall, noting that it will have to do since he's not at full strength. Watching from a distance, Kanato is completely blown away. He realizes this is what it means to be a real adventurer as Jean prepares to take down the rest of the slavers. The imposter leader panics, wondering how Jean, a supposed monster, escaped with his mana drained. He decides to change plans and make a run for it. But his escape is cut short. Kanato, completely starstruck, tells Jean he's beyond awesome. Jean smugly agrees, asking if Kanato has changed his mind about him. Their banter is interrupted by a massive crash, which Kanato playfully blames on Jean's rampage. From the dust and debris, a massive dragon appears in the night sky. The dragon fixes its gaze on the two humans. Faced with the very real threat they were told was fake, Kanato and Jean scream in terror. The dragon attacks, forcing Jean to pull Kanato out of the path of destruction. As they flee, they both wonder why a real dragon is here and if the slavers' base was built near its lair. The dragon emerges from the dust, growling menacingly. Jean concludes that with no way to call for backup, he'll have to defeat the dragon himself. Kanato questions this, reminding Jean of his low mana, but Jean insists he has confidence in his martial arts skills. Kanato uses his magic on Jean once more. He explains that he adjusted Jean's remaining mana and realigned his joints, allowing him to move at full range, much to Jean's surprise. Jean feels incredibly light and agile, exclaiming that Kanato did plenty. Kanato apologizes that he can't do more. Jean smiles, telling Kanato that his magic is the type that is truly kind and caring. He vows to protect both Kanato and his town, telling him to get to safety. As Kanato runs, Jean turns to face the beast. Kanato runs for safety but hesitates and looks back. He sees Jean locked in a fierce battle with the dragon. He understands that Jean is fighting so hard to protect him. Recalling Jean's words about his kind and caring magic, Kanato feels a surge of determination. He realizes that if Jean is fighting to save him, then he must help Jean in return. Just as he makes his decision, the dragon begins to charge a powerful energy blast. Seeing his chance while the dragon is distracted, Kanato prepares to act. He raises his massage ball, declaring that it is full of mana. To be precise, his Seitai magic works by creating a flow boost. His grandma's voice explains that his magic works by adjusting mana and setting energy into motion. Linny reflects on how he is a kind boy who always uses his magic for his patients. But his grandma wonders what would happen if he were to cast off those restraints. With a powerful cry, Kanato acts. He throws the mana-infused massage ball directly at the dragon. Kanato screams as he unleashes his power. He unleashes a super acceleration attack, and the ball strikes the dragon, causing it to swell up instantly. The dragon, now grotesquely inflated, floats away powerlessly. Jean stares in stunned silence. Kanato is equally shocked by what he's just done, exclaiming that Seitai magic is sick. He collapses to the ground, his body trembling from the exertion. He makes a mental note to never, ever use that on his patients. With the slavers tied up, Jean praises Kanato for his great work. He excitedly asks for Kanato's name, calling his feat seriously amazing. Kanato timidly introduces himself. Jean assumes Kanato must have done something else, like being a mercenary or monster hunter. Kanato clarifies that he's only ever worked at his grandma's Seitai clinic in town. Jean can't believe that he's just an ordinary Seitai practitioner. Jean addresses Kanato seriously. He formally asks Kanato what he thinks about becoming an adventurer and joining his guild. Kanato is stunned, barely able to process the question. Jean enthusiastically shows off his increased flexibility, crediting Kanato's magic and insisting his power would be a great asset. Kanato, overwhelmed, starts to refuse the offer. Kanato waves his hands frantically, insisting he's just a simple Seitai practitioner. He claims to know his limits, but Jean pointedly asks, "Do you really?" Jean argues that being an adventurer fits Kanato's abilities best, especially since he just defeated a dragon. Kanato admits that he is actually considering it. His main concern is what he would tell his grandma. He recalls his conversation with his grandma, who simply told him to be careful. He was shocked by her simple acceptance, and she assured him she would handle the clinic. She told him that since he's a man now, he should go out and give his dream a try. Her words bring tears to his eyes. He remembers thanking his grandma and the supportive townspeople. As they wave goodbye to the town, Linny joins them, shouting farewells. Kanato is shocked and asks why she's coming along. Jean explains that he needed a receptionist, and Linny wanted to go, so he approved. Jean gets Kanato's attention. He tells Kanato that he knows he will be a great adventurer, and promises to make sure he doesn't regret his choice. Kanato is moved, realizing Jean truly believes in him. With renewed determination, Kanato promises to do his best as he runs towards his new life as an adventurer. Kanato, the Seitai practitioner, travels with his new companions toward the royal capital to become an adventurer, guided by Jean, captain of the Iron Fangs. The third member is Linny, a cheerful receptionist who is documenting their trip with a magical recording device, hoping to write a best-selling autobiography. While Jean finds Linny's ambition amusing, he cryptically asks Kanato if he has realized something important about his new path. Jean bluntly informs a stunned Kanato that he isn't actually an adventurer yet because he's not certified. He points to the official badge on his own arm, explaining it's a required certification. Kanato asks what he needs to do first, and Jean tells him he must register with the Adventurers Association to get a badge. Meanwhile, Kanato is flustered by Linny's overly personal documentation of their journey. The group arrives at the Adventurers Association Eastern Branch, a peculiar building shaped like a giant mushroom. Jean explains that the association handles paperwork, missions, and is a great source of information. Inside, a staff member named Hibiki looks up from her book, recognizing Jean as he approaches. Jean greets Hibiki and announces he's there to register a new adventurer. Kanato nervously asks if there's a test, but Hibiki explains that registration is a routine process. After Kanato provides a drop of blood for the paperwork, he winces in minor pain. Suddenly, a strange, small creature poofs into existence on the counter, startling Kanato and Linny. Hibiki explains it's a magic assessment doll that will determine his rank based on his abilities. As Kanato silently vows to become an adventurer his grandma can be proud of, the assessment is completed. The doll's first word after the assessment is a shocking insult, maggot. It elaborates that Kanato's physical strength and mana are all below standard base level and the world has no place for him. The doll then offers a condition: if Kanato still wants authorization, he must prove himself. Confused by the doll's strange behavior, Kanato turns to Hibiki for an explanation. Without hesitation, Kanato declares that he'll accept the challenge. Jean tries to intervene, thinking the doll is malfunctioning, but Kanato is determined. He explains that he's happy for the challenge, as it makes his dream feel more attainable. His enthusiastic response leads Hibiki and Linny to wonder if he's a masochist, which Linny confirms she's pretty sure he is. The doll orders Kanato outside, giving him his task: help more than 10 people with his magic by sundown. Hibiki explains this is now the only way to get authorized, so Kanato runs off with the doll, promising to be careful. As they run, the doll begins a stressful interview, asking why he wants to become an adventurer. Unsatisfied with Kanato's vague answer, the doll repeatedly whaps him, demanding to know the origin of his dream. As he runs, Kanato begins to recount the origin of his dream. He explains that a long time ago, his and Linny's hometown was attacked by monsters. Adventurers from a guild came and defeated the monsters, seeming like heroes from another world. Among them, one adventurer stood out by taking the time to give soup to the cold and frightened townspeople. Kanato recalls watching in awe as the adventurer used magic to heat up the soup. The adventurer told him his goal was to heat up soup for people all over the world. Though he didn't understand magic well then, Kanato was inspired and wished he could use his own magic to help people in a similar way. This desire was reinforced when Jean later told him that his magic is indeed the type that is kind and caring towards others. His story finished, Kanato declares that he is now super committed to his goal. The doll, seemingly moved, challenges him to warm up its own ice-cold verdict. Kanato spots his first target in Yuba Town. The doll's analysis confirms the man is in trouble, and it urges Kinato to go help. The man explains that he feels nauseous from the carriage ride and forgot his motion sickness medicine. Kinato approaches, understanding the man's plight. He asks for just a moment to prepare his magic. Kinato kneels and begins to use his Seitai magic, much to the man's surprise. The man is amazed, exclaiming that he feels unbelievably better, even more so than with his usual medicine. Hibiki is skeptical, noting that it looked like plain recovery magic. Linny proudly clarifies that it's Seitai magic, which can treat everything from aching joints to nerve pain. The doll internally notes that Kinato's own mana reserves are incredibly low. The doll compares Kinato's mana to a mere cupful next to Jin's pool, just as another man, Aljin, complains of an aching back. Kinato's magic works by outputting a small amount of his own mana to control the flow of others, producing a greater effect. The doll is impressed, realizing this requires incredibly precise control, and finds itself warming up to him. Thanks to Kinato's treatment, Aljin exclaims that he's all better now. After a successful streak of healing, Kinato finds that there's nobody else in trouble, leaving him one person short of his goal. As his friends relax, Hibiki reminds him that he must help one more person to pass, as this is his only chance for the year. The doll explains its purpose is to fail those who are not ready, and the fact it had to intervene with a personality means Kinato is unstable. The doll suggests it might be time for Kinato to give up. But Kinato, sitting beside it, says he knows his limits, but doesn't want to give up just because he's inexperienced. He passionately declares that he will become an adventurer. The doll won't regret giving its seal of approval. His determination impresses the doll, which notes his mental fortitude is above base level and admits he's firing it up. Watching from afar, even Linny and Hibiki can feel the intensity of the moment. Suddenly, a nearby building erupts in flames, creating a big problem for the town. The restaurant owner cries out in terror, realizing his son is still trapped inside the burning building. The crowd panics, realizing they won't be able to get water from the well in time to save the boy. Hibiki urges Jin, the experienced adventurer, to do something, but he flatly refuses. Instead, Jin calmly turns to Kinato, telling him that this challenge is his to overcome. Kinato recalls his grandma's lesson: mana flows not only through people but through nature as well. He realizes that if there's a well nearby, he might be able to find its source. Using his unique senses, he focuses and successfully locates the trigger point of the groundwater flowing beneath the street. He recalls the principle of a trigger point, a tight knot of pain that can be released by applying pressure. He imbues his massage ball with mana, preparing to use it. With a cry of super acceleration, he hurls the ball at the trigger point in the ground. He plans to use this technique to release the pressure from the underground water source. He unleashes his power, intending to transfer the pressure into the groundwater below. A massive geyser of water erupts from the ground, much to the surprise of the onlookers. The geyser safely carries the trapped child out of the building, who astonishingly seems to be enjoying the ride. Linny and Jin wave, soaked but triumphant, as bubbles from the magic float around them. The crowd stands in stunned silence, realizing that Kinato single-handedly put out the massive fire. Exhausted but relieved, Kinato sits on the ground, thankful that his risky plan worked. Jin approaches the doll, confidently asking for its assessment of Kinato's performance. The doll grumpily stamps the paperwork with its seal of approval. It officially announces that Kinato has cleared the conditions of the test. Back at the guild, Hibiki smiles and presents him with his completed registration. She confirms that he is now officially an adventurer. Kinato is ecstatic to finally be an adventurer, and his friends cheer for him. He blushes, marveling at the thought that he is now one of the heroes he's always admired. He eagerly points to his new badge and asks Hibiki what rank he has achieved. Hibiki delivers the shocking news: his rank is colorless, making him the first person ever to rank below bronze. The assessment doll confirms this was the result of its comprehensive analysis, much to the group's surprise. Hibiki encourages him, telling him to prove that her decision to pass him was the right one. With renewed determination, Kinato promises that he will make her proud, and Hibiki says she is rooting for him. Having successfully completed their objective, the group now heads to the capital, home of the Iron Fangs Adventurers Guild. Jin, Linny, and Kinato arrive in the bustling city of Assam. Having spent his life in a small town, Kinato is completely awestruck by the sheer scale of the metropolis. They have entered the Ruhuna Kingdom's capital city, a place where magic is woven into the fabric of daily life. Kanato excitedly points out people flying through the sky on magical devices. Jean explains that this is a common sight for the city's many resident magicians. Kanato turns to Linny, still buzzing with excitement about the big city. Linny, however, has already spotted an Assam lottery stand and promptly buys 10 tickets. Her hopes are immediately dashed as she scratches them all off, only to find they are all losers. Shaking it off, she quickly pivots, excitedly declaring that there are so many shops she wants to explore, while Kanato notes her impressive resilience. Jean gets their attention and leads them onward. He stops before a large building, proudly announcing that this is his guild. Kanato and Linny are impressed, finding it more legitimate than they expected. As Linny gets fired up about making money, they celebrate their arrival. Suddenly, they notice a different, much larger building looming behind them. With a powerful kick, Jean smashes the sign on the smaller building, which shatters into pieces. Kanato and Linny are left speechless by the prank. Kanato reflects that when faced with something so incomprehensible, sometimes the only thing to do is smile. Jean laughs, admitting it was just a decoy sign. Jean gestures to the real guild hall, the adventurers' guild known as the Iron Fangs, admitting he uses the decoy to lure in clients. Linny cheekily suggests she can be the guild's pretty facade instead. Seeing Kanato hesitate, Linny urges him to hurry up. She reminds him that this is what he's been waiting for. Her words strike a chord with Kanato. With renewed determination, he follows Jean inside, ready for his new life to begin. The moment Jean steps through the door, a massive, mustached man slams him into the floor with a powerful blow, furiously demanding to know where his captain has been slacking off. The man recovers his composure after his outburst. He gives the newcomers a boisterous welcome, introducing himself as Aljan, the Iron Fang's vice-captain. He proudly declares that no job is too dirty for them. Kanato and Linny are stunned when Aljan adds that he also works the front desk. Linny explains to Aljan that they aren't clients. Confused, Aljan demands to know who they are. Jean gets up and cheerfully announces that he was on a recruiting trip, presenting Kanato and Linny as the Iron Fang's newest recruits. Unimpressed, Aljan tells him to stop making excuses and smashes him into the floor again. Aljan apologizes for the startling welcome. He explains that he and Jean go way back and always fight like this, which surprises Kanato. He notes that while their guild is small and elite, the bigger guilds have a monopoly on most requests. Linny finds the monopoly unfair and scummy. As he speaks, a figure on the balcony above them observes the fresh recruits. The figure reveals herself to be Kaminagi, another Iron Fang's member. She immediately questions Jean's judgment in recruiting Kanato, whose colorless rank she finds unacceptable. Believing an amateur will damage their credibility, she declares she won't accept him and will instead knock some sense into him herself. Kaminagi leaps from the balcony, sword drawn, and lunges toward Kanato, telling him it's time for the rookie to learn his place. Linny cries out his name in alarm. Just as Kaminagi is about to strike, she screeches to a halt, having been intercepted by Linny. Kaminagi's entire demeanor changes. Gazing at Linny, she calls her a beautiful lady and asks to call her princess from now on. She declares herself Linny's knight, while Kanato watches in utter confusion. Jean explains the situation, starting with a story called A Knight's Chronicle. He elaborates that Kaminagi is a huge fan of the story about a knight and princess. She gets lost in a fantasy world whenever she meets a girl she finds attractive, pulling Linny into her delusion. Linny, adapting quickly, graciously accepts her new title. Jean asks Kanato for his thoughts on their unique members. He can only admit he's not sure he can keep up. Jean then announces it's time to assign mentors for the new recruits. Aljan will train Linny on guild matters and running the front desk. This means Kanato's mentor will be Kaminagi. Kanato panics, convinced Kaminagi is going to murder him. Jean reassures him, advising him not to be afraid. He tells Kanato to explain the strong feelings behind his dream of becoming an adventurer. He explains that while the Iron Fang's members have their quirks, they possess the mental fortitude to overcome any obstacle. Their guild never yields and is never broken. That is the spirit of the Iron Fangs. Kanato realizes he can't be afraid if he wants to achieve his dream. Finding his resolve, Kanato boldly declares his goal to become an adventurer who shines with true strength, able to be kind and support many people. He proclaims that he came to the Iron Fangs to make that happen, as his new guildmates listen. Pleased with his declaration, Jean gets right to business. He immediately sends Kanato and Kaminagi on a mission. A village to the south, Evkiv, is overrun with monsters, preventing villagers from gathering food. Kaminagi is unenthusiastic about being paired with a colorless rookie who will only slow her down. Jean puts Kanato's fate in her hands if she decides he has no talent after seeing him in action. He will be kicked out of the Iron Fangs. Kanato is shocked, protesting that he just arrived. However, Kaminagi finds the challenge intriguing and accepts the responsibility. While Uljan worries about Kanato's despair, Linny seems confident that Jean has a plan. Jean explains his reasoning. It's when Kanato is pushed to the brink that he shows his true strength. Their first mission is to slay the monsters troubling Evkiv village. They arrive on the trade route to Evkiv. They are immediately set upon by a group of low-level slime monsters. The seemingly harmless creatures suddenly reveal vicious, sharp-toothed maws and attack. Kaminagi and Kanato prepare for battle. Kaminagi moves with swift grace, unleashing a wave of ice that instantly freezes a swarm of attacking slimes. She then lays out the terms of his test. To prove his abilities during this mission, he must slay more monsters than she does. She adds that she's sure it will be impossible for a colorless like him. Another group of slimes lunges at Kanato. Unfazed, Kanato prepares his own attack, imbuing his massage ball with his mana. Kaminagi watches with a look of disdain, calling his situation pathetic. Kanato yells super acceleration, launching his mana-infused ball. It ricochets at incredible speed, tearing through the slimes and splattering them in a single devastating attack. Kaminagi is stunned, questioning his use of Seitai magic. He then turns to her, formally introducing himself and respectfully asking her to teach him everything she knows. In the ruins of a village, Kanato stands ready for his mission, to eliminate the slimes running rampant. His initial attack was a success, but he knows he can't let his guard down and must adjust the trajectory of his massage ball. He steels himself, remembering the twisty-turny massage ball technique he practiced with Jean on the way to Assam. Suddenly, he realizes Kaminagi is no longer in sight. In a flash, she reappears, having already moved to engage another group of monsters. Kaminagi unleashes a powerful wave of ice, instantly freezing a swarm of slimes in their tracks. With the immediate threat shattered, she stands with her katana sheathed, the battle seemingly over for now. Kanato can only watch, stunned into silence by her overwhelming power. Not to be outdone, Kanato unleashes his own technique, massage ball super acceleration, sending a projectile ricocheting through the remaining slimes. Kaminagi observes coolly, remarking that his use of mana manipulation is impressive for a colorless rank. But Kanato's success is short-lived as the defeated slimes begin to pull themselves back together. The gooey monsters quickly reform, their dizzy eyes showing they are only temporarily defeated. The reformed slimes suddenly reveal menacing fangs and lunge toward Kanato. He stares in shock, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. Kaminagi grabs him by the collar, telling the rookie to get out of her way. She effortlessly tosses him aside to face the threat herself. However, a sharp pain courses through her, causing her to clutch her arm. Kaminagi pushes through the pain, unleashing another wave of ice at the monsters. Kanato, having been thrown into the bushes, calls out her name in concern. Watching her struggle against the seemingly endless tide of regenerating monsters, she explains that they will continue to split from a core unless it's destroyed. Kaminagi explains that fighting them head-on is pointless, a strategy she believes is beyond a colorless like him. She adds that if he had ice magic like her, things might be different. To her surprise, Kanato's face lights up, and he sincerely thanks her for teaching him. Kaminagi stares, bewildered by his reaction. She inwardly fumes, realizing her attempt to insult him had the opposite effect. Her irritation fades into a wistful thought, remembering that in the beginning, everyone is filled with hope. She thinks back to the people who once walked the same path with her, their eyes sparkling with dreams. But gradually, they hit walls, started avoiding danger, and ultimately gave up. Soon, when she looked back, no one else was left by her side. Her hand tightens on the hilt of her katana. She looks toward Kanato, cynically wondering how long his own hope can possibly last. Suddenly, a young boy runs past, screaming for help as a massive slime monster chases him. Kanato shouts in alarm, while Kaminagi calmly notes that the slimes have fused and transformed. She tells Kanato to step back, preparing to intervene. But as she tries to channel her magic, her power falters. She grunts in pain and stumbles, unable to execute her attack as Kanato calls her name in alarm. With Kaminagi unable to fight, Kanato fires off a massage ball to distract the giant slime. The attack misses the monster but hits a wall, creating a diversion. He scoops up the terrified boy and makes a run for it, deciding to retreat for the time being. The giant slime seems to have lost them for the moment. Once they find a safe corner, Kanato asks the boy if he's all right. Kaminagi approaches, asking why he ignored the association's evacuation orders. The boy explains with tears in his eyes that his mother is sick and he snuck out to find food for her. Kanato gently tells the crying boy not to worry. He promises that they'll handle the monsters before anyone in the village gets hurt. With a confident grin, he presents Kaminagi, declaring that by we, he mostly means her. Kaminagi grabs him, furious at being put on the spot. She challenges him, asking if his self-damaging magic is really his true power. She tells him not to act like he knows what he's talking about, stating his body could never hold out using a magic that's like a self-inflicted explosion. Kanato counters, pointing out that the wavelengths of her mana and her katana don't match up. He admits that he's not strong enough to save the village on his own. However, he declares that he can support her, because that's what his magic is for. He looks at her with fierce determination, shouting that he doesn't want to see her get hurt anymore. Kaminagi quietly admits she knows there's a problem, confessing she hasn't been able to draw her sword for some time. Kanato begins his diagnosis, stating that he believes she has a severe sensitivity to the cold. He explains that since mana is tied to one's physical condition, her already poor circulation is worsened by her ice magic, causing her body temperature to drop and resulting in damage. Kaminagi realizes this must be why her mana stopped matching her katana's wavelength, and Kanato confirms that improving her circulation should fix the problem. She silently reflects that it's true she's always cold, shocked that he noticed such a detail. Their conversation is cut short as the giant slime looms over them, now even larger than before. Kanato shouts in alarm, realizing it has fused again. The monster smashes through a wall, forcing them to leap out of the way. Kaminagi lands and shouts that they must destroy its core, urging Kanato to execute his plan immediately, but he seems to hesitate. Kanato explains that using his mana directly on others can put a dangerous strain on their bodies. Kaminagi fiercely rejects the notion of being a patient, declaring herself a proud adventurer of the Iron Fangs. Her words hit home and Kanato's resolve hardens. He realizes that if he doesn't trust her, there's no point in being partners. With renewed determination, he unleashes his Seitai magic, yelling "Flow Boost," as he channels his power into Kaminagi. She feels his magic coursing through her, mixing with her own mana and blood. The sensation is surprisingly pleasant, like a warm bath after a long day, warm enough to melt ice. Kanato unleashes the full force of his support magic, super warming circulation surge. The warmth spreads through Kaminagi, allowing her to finally draw her sword. The giant slime monster roars as it prepares to attack. The village boy screams in terror as Kanato shields him, shouting Kaminagi's name. With newfound warmth coursing through her, Kaminagi calmly begins to draw her katana from its sheath. With her sword finally drawn, Kaminagi unleashes a massive, decisive slash of ice that engulfs the monster. She looks back at Kanato with a confident smile, telling him not to worry as she's warm and toasty now. Kanato cheers, overjoyed that their plan worked. An official confirms the mission was to slay the slimes near Evkiv village. He reviews the evaluation form, stating that he has detected 0 monsters in the surrounding area. Looking at a stunned Kanato and a stoic Kaminagi, he officially declares the mission a success. Kanato clenches his fists in excitement, thanking the official profusely for confirming their success. He excitedly tells Kaminagi they did it, but she quietly thinks about how she handled all the monsters alone. Kanato's celebration is cut short by the dreadful realization that he was supposed to prove himself and now fears he'll be kicked out of the guild. Kaminagi, however, sheathes her sword, realizing she can move comfortably again and is back in sync with her weapon. Kaminagi turns to Kanato, admitting she'll likely need to rely on his magic more in the future. Kanato is startled by her sudden admission. Internally, Kaminagi struggles with an unfamiliar feeling, trying to regain her composure. She tries to calm herself by thinking of her favorite story, A Knight's Chronicle. Meanwhile, Kanato reflects on his own weakness during the mission. His declaration of getting stronger to stay by her side makes Kaminagi's heart skip a beat. Kaminagi's mind races as she recognizes Kanato's words. She realizes he just quoted the iconic line the knight says to the princess in A Knight's Chronicle, Volume 10, Chapter 4. She nervously approaches Kanato, asking if he reads the story. He smiles apologetically, explaining that he hasn't read it but knows the basic plot. The fact that he said it all on his own sends a jolt through Kaminagi. Their moment is interrupted as the young village boy runs toward them, calling for the adventurers. The boy announces that everyone from the village has come to thank them. Caught up in the moment, Kaminagi nearly declares herself their knight. The woman asks if something is wrong, snapping Kaminagi out of her daze. Kaminagi wonders why she now sees the woman as a princess. She spirals, suddenly questioning her very identity. Kaminagi recalls how she has based her entire life on having the soul of a knight from the story. Recovering her composure, she politely deflects their gratitude. Kanato simply says he's happy everyone is safe, and his knightly demeanor makes Kaminagi's heart pound. Kaminagi reflects that despite reading the series countless times, Kanato embodies the knight's spirit effortlessly. An image of Kanato as the knight and herself as the princess fills her mind as she realizes he is a true knight. She decides it's time to reread the entire series from this new perspective. She embraces these new failings as a form of growth that will deepen her interpretation of the story. As Kanato is celebrated by the villagers, Kaminagi walks away, musing that identifying with the princess might not be so bad. Looking down at the guild hall, Kanato and Kaminagi see something strange. Kanato cheerfully announces that they're back. They walk in on Linny and Aljun doing intense poster girl training, much to Kanato's confusion. While Aljun preaches about building beauty like muscle, Linny and Kanato are baffled by the strange training regimen. Jean waves from across the room, welcoming the pair back as Linny and Aljun celebrate. Kanato happily greets Jean, who asks how his first mission went. Kaminagi interjects, recommending that Kanato join the Iron Fangs as he sufficiently proved his abilities. Jean leaps in relief, overjoyed that Kanato is safe. Kaminagi turns to a surprised Kanato and formally accepts him. With a flourish, Kaminagi points at Kanato and accepts him as her knight, leaving him and the others speechless. She immediately outlines his special training to refine his knightly soul, starting with reading all 42 volumes of the Chronicle. With a blush, she adds that after that, he can treat her like a real princess, as Aljun muses they're getting along and Linny wonders if Kaminagi has opened a new door. Kaminagi suddenly rushes towards a startled Linny, saying she needs to consult with her. Blushing, Kaminagi awkwardly asks Linny if she could show her how to be cute like a princess. Linny is shocked as Kaminagi explains she wants to internalize the princess role, starting with outward appearances. Linny enthusiastically agrees, declaring it's time to start a girl squad as she embraces Kaminagi. Jean and Aljun watch the scene unfold, commenting on Kanato's surprising effect on Kaminagi and the unpredictable nature of girls. Jean crouches down and congratulates Kanato on succeeding at his first mission. Kanato expresses his relief at not being kicked out, but Jean apologizes, admitting he only said that to motivate Kaminagi. Jean laughs, revealing he would have kept sending Kanato on missions with her until she finally accepted him. He extends his hand to Kanato again. With a smile, Jean officially welcomes Kanato to the Iron Fangs. The two shake hands, sealing the deal. Kanato gratefully accepts, saying he's looking forward to being a member. Jean playfully tells the new hotshot that his next mission is already lined up, much to Kanato's surprise. As Jean mentions the other members will arrive soon, an aggressive voice from outside yells, "Who the hell do you think you are?" The leaders of two rival gangs face off, arguing over who owns the turf. They shout at each other, claiming the entire neighborhood belongs to them. Kanato and Linny watch from the doorway, with Linny casually remarking that this is normal for the capital city. The conflict escalates as the gangs prepare to fight. A man with glasses, Talius, sighs in exasperation, having just returned from a long mission. He mutters about how his fellow gang members are acting like idiots after he's only been gone for a few days. Talius tells his companion, Juna, to stay back, but she complains that carrying a large pack is making her stand out even more. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Juna decides she's just going to hide. Talius strides toward the conflict, yelling at his gang members for fighting in the street again. He warns the rival gang not to cause trouble for the Iron Fangs or their neighbors. He finishes his threat, promising to kill them all, as Juna hides from the confrontation. Two of the gang members look on in fear. Suddenly, the aggressive gang members break into smiles, happily exclaiming that Talius is back. The once brawling gangs now stand in two neat lines, facing a stern Talius. Kanato and Linny watch in disbelief. Talius asks what they were fighting about this time. The gang members start bickering, revealing they were fighting over who gets to pick up trash, much to Kanato's astonishment. Talius screams at them to shape up and get along during trash duty, prompting Linny to think he's scary but sweet. Having settled the dispute, Talius turns and spots Kinato asking who the new recruits are. He proudly introduces himself as Talius, an adventurer from the Iron Fangs and Jean's first apprentice. He puts Kinato in a friendly headlock, apologizing if his gang members scared him. Talius points to his shy companion, who is still hiding. He introduces her as Juna, who always sticks out because of her height, prompting her to beg not to be looked at. Linny playfully tells a struggling Kinato that he'll need to build up his courage as well. On a train heading to their next mission, Talius is overcome with emotion, having just heard about Kinato's motivations. He tearfully encourages Kinato to visit his grandmother. Kinato, though a bit taken aback by Talius's passionate reaction, promises he will. As the train chugs along towards the capital, Talius explains their next mission is in a city to the north called Kizilani. Talius proudly declares that they're taking the train because a real man embraces the elements, a sentiment that leaves Kinato slightly bewildered. When Kinato asks to go over the mission details, Talius enthusiastically agrees. Talius explains that their client wants them to find a magical device engineer named Ibis, while Juna happily munches on a donut beside him. Kinato takes in the new information, a bit distracted by the food. Before he can respond, Juna shoves a donut into his mouth, insisting he try it. Talius scolds Juna for interrupting while Kinato is talking, but she apologizes, explaining the donut was just too good not to share. Her excitement immediately piques Talius's curiosity. Juna thinks to herself that Kinato brings out her maternal instincts, while Talius demands a bite of the donut, which she refuses. Juna offers to share her food with Kinato whenever he's hungry, and he gratefully accepts. Talius gets serious and calls Kinato's name, getting his attention. Kinato is surprised that Talius could tell he was feeling anxious, admitting it's tough knowing how to act with a new team. Talius offers some advice, telling him not to focus on the uncertain future, but on what he's already accomplished. Talius points to Kinato's uniform, telling him it's proof of his achievements and that he should be confident in himself. His words resonate with Kinato, who feels a renewed sense of determination. As the train pulls into the station, Kinato reaffirms his goal to become a true adventurer. He resolves to build up his experience so he can use his magic to help as many people as possible. Talius lightens the mood by jokingly suggesting Kinato call him boss, an offer Kinato immediately rejects. The team arrives in Kizilani, a city of artisans located near a specialized mine where the people make their living working with crystals. Kinato marvels at the artisan city as Talius proudly looks on. With renewed focus, Talius rallies the team to begin their search for Ibis. Just as they set off, a shout from the crowd warns them to catch someone, leaving Talius confused. A young girl comes tumbling out of the sky, heading right for Talius. She screams an apology as she hurtles downwards, unable to control her descent. Kinato can only watch in horror as he realizes someone is falling from the sky, right into the middle of the street. An angry crowd gathers, shouting at the girl to stop pretending to be Ibis and to quit her dangerous jumping. The girl bounces on a rooftop, trying to convince the crowd that her mentor's magical devices are meant to enrich their lives. The townspeople are unconvinced, grumbling that Ibis's experiments have only put them in danger. Meanwhile, Talius is preoccupied, fuming over the water that splashed onto his perfectly styled hair. Determined to win them over, the girl presents her latest invention, the Gargantua No. 1. She flips a switch and declares that the device will now suck up all the trash in town, much to the crowd's confusion. The device goes haywire, sucking up the cobblestones from the street and causing even more destruction. The girl stares at the chaos she's created, speechless at the failure of her invention. As the crowd yells that she's running away, she promises to get a magical device to fix the damage. With that, she turns and makes a hasty retreat. Furious about the wax in his hair, Talius gives chase, screaming for the girl to get back. He dives and tackles her, sending them both tumbling to the ground. As Juna and Kinato call out his name, Talius furiously yells at the girl for wrecking his hair and the town. Pinned beneath him, the girl notices the emblem on Talius's arm. She looks up from her position on the ground and asks if he is an adventurer. The girl introduces herself as Elsie, their client, and pleads for them to help her find her mentor. Talius observes that helping her mentor might be difficult, given how unpopular she seems to be with the townsfolk. A townsman confirms that while Ibis is a talented magical device engineer, she has caused a lot of trouble for a long time. A local explains Ibis's annoying habit of appearing from her workshop to test wacky devices, cause mayhem, and then disappear. He adds that while the townspeople consider Ibis a nuisance, Elsie is the only one who is fond of her. Kinato points out that with Ibis missing, Elsie has started showing up and causing trouble in her place. Elsie looks down but firmly insists that Ibis isn't a bad person. In a flashback, Ibis admits to young Elsie that she often messes up, but her dream is to one day make everyone happy with her inventions. She playfully tells Elsie that she is planting seeds of happiness. Back in the present, Kinato echoes Ibis's words, telling Elsie that magic is supposed to make people happy. He kneels down, noticing her unique footwear, and asks if her shoes are magical devices made by Ibis. Elsie explains that Ibis molded the shoes exactly to the shape of her feet to make them comfortable and easy to walk in. Hearing this, Kinato smiles warmly, concluding that Ibis must be a really kind person. Elsie is visibly touched by his understanding. Kinato declares that they'll find Ibis no matter what, and even a still grumpy Talius agrees to see the mission through. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Elsie thanks them profusely. Elsie leads the group into the Kizilani mines, a breathtaking cavern of massive crystals known as the Crystal Forest. She explains that while Ibis lives in the mines, a mysterious fog makes the path to her workshop like a never-ending maze. Talius, ever passionate, declares that no fog will stop him, earning an exasperated sigh from Kinato. Elsie explains her real worry. The last time she saw Ibis, she seemed unwell and now she's vanished. She begins to explain that there is another reason she specifically sought help from adventurers. As Elsie mentions adventurers, a suit of armor suddenly lunges towards her. Kinato reacts instantly, tackling Elsie to safety just as the armor's weapon strikes. As more armored figures approach, Elsie explains that this is as far as she could get before being attacked. Talius commends Kinato for his quick reaction in protecting their client. Talius and Juna move to the front, telling Kinato he can sit back and watch them handle it. Talius confidently tells Kinato that he's about to see how the pros do it. Kinato, however, is determined to contribute to the fight. Insisting on helping, he places his hands on his teammates' backs and begins to cast his Seitai magic. Kinato unleashes his Flow Boost spell, sending a wave of energy through Talius and Juna. He shouts that he's got their back and that they should feel it's easier to move now. Talius and Juna are astonished by the effects of Kinato's magic, feeling lighter and more powerful as the enemy closes in. With the enemy upon them, a newly energized Talius prepares to strike. Empowered by Kinato's magic, Talius charges forward and effortlessly deflects an attack from one of the armored suits. Talius smashes through the enemy's attack, sending the armored figure flying. The impact sends a shockwave through the crystal cavern. Elsie watches in awe as Talius prepares to take on the rest of the enemies. He turns to Kinato, complimenting his support magic before confidently declaring that their enemies are dealing with the Iron Fangs. A man with white hair watching from afar realizes they are not alone in the area. He complains about the delay while his companions, Lamia and Zio, bicker over taking the downed suit of armor as a souvenir. The suit of armor lies defeated on the ground. Kinato and Elsie marvel at the power of their teammates' magic. Kinato excitedly congratulates Talius and Juna on their easy victory. Talius playfully boasts about their performance, much to Juna's flustered embarrassment. Talius gives credit to Kinato, explaining his magic provided a crucial power boost. Kinato shyly accepts the praise, clearly pleased with himself. Juna and Talius comment on how well they work together thanks to Kinato's support. Suddenly, Kinato shouts in alarm as the defeated suits of armor begin to rise again. The mysterious onlookers from earlier deem the situation not good. A massive explosion sends a figure crashing to the ground. Lamia emerges from the dust, coolly reprimanding someone for neglecting their duties. Surrounded by lightning, Zio zips through the battlefield. He grins, excited about earning 10 extra hero points for his actions. Kinato recognizes the two new arrivals, much to Talius's confusion. The leader of the new group identifies them as the Seraph Wings from the Adventurers Guild. Kinato and Talius are shocked and confused by what the Seraph Wings are doing there. Lamia confidently announces that they are the elite, #1 guild at their service. Lamia introduces herself and Zio, handing Kinato a business card for their guild. While Kinato is polite, Talius angrily confronts Lamia, telling Kinato not to speak with her. Lamia coolly dismisses Talius's group as a little friendship club. Furious at the insult, Talius challenges her to a one-on-one fight. Lamia effortlessly silences Talius, remarking on how quickly she shut him up. Kinato, holding the business card, asks Juna what the deal is with the Seraph Wings. Juna explains that among the kingdom's guilds, the Seraph Wings is the largest. She continues, stating they are known as the strongest guild, taking on high-level missions. Elsie whispers to Kanato that other guilds avoid their territory so as not to compete for jobs. Juna and Kanato are perplexed as to why their guild is based in the capital, right in the Seraph Wings territory. Lamia and Talius face off, with Talius declaring that the bigger the rival, the more satisfying the victory. Juna suspects their guild leaders, Jean and Aljan, likely set up their base without any strategic thought. Kanato shouts a warning as one of the suits of armor lunges toward them. Lamia effortlessly destroys the attacking suits of armor. With a flick of her wrist, Lamia declares she doesn't have time to argue. Lamia checks her watch, annoyed that her packed schedule has been disrupted. She unleashes another powerful attack, reiterating that they have no time to spare. Kanato watches in wide-eyed shock at the display of power. The Seraph Wings leader explains their mission is to clear out the armor to allow for mining operations. Lamia asks if the Iron Fangs are also after the armor, but Talius denies it. Talius explains that they are searching for a missing person named Ibis. Lamia proposes they each stick to their own mission. However, she then asserts her mission's priority, warning the Iron Fangs not to interfere. She insults Kanato's colorless rank, suggesting it's only good for finding missing people. Talius leaps to Kanato's defense, enraged by the insult. Lamia points to Zio, revealing he is also a newbie who only started a month ago. Lamia explains that an adventurer's skill is shown by the badge on their armband, with ranks from colorless to gold. She proudly declares that Zio's rank is gold and he has the capacity to become a legendary regalia. Talius and Juna react with shock, realizing Zio is a prodigy. Kanato thinks to himself that Zio became an adventurer around the same time he did. Zio turns to look at Kanato. Kanato stares back, a silent challenge passing between the two newcomers. Talius decides there's no point in staying and tells his team they should go. However, his pride gets the better of him, and he grabs Kanato, refusing to back down from the confrontation. With the other guild gone, Kanato wonders aloud about the suits of armor. Elsie explains that they were originally magical gadgets created by Ibis. Kanato remembers seeing them helping around town and notes that they never attacked anyone. Talius dismisses Ibis's work as defective, but Elsie insists that's not true. Suddenly, a suit of armor grabs Kanato, who lets out a terrified scream. His teammates shout warnings as the armor, one they had already defeated, grabs hold of Kanato. The armor's grip tightens around Kanato. A strange magical formula glows on the armor's arm. Kanato channels his power, casting Seitai magic, relaxation on the aggressive suit of armor. Kanato explains that since the armor is a magical device covered in formulas, he might be able to make it ease up. The armor is thrown off balance by his magic. Kanato stares in disbelief. The suit of armor speaks, apologizing for finding it in an embarrassing position, and the entire group shouts in unison, shocked that it can talk. The armor asks if the group is searching for Miss Ibis. It apologizes for its aggressive behavior, explaining it was programmed to chase away all visitors. Talius questions if Ibis is dangerous, but the armor insists it's a misunderstanding. It explains that it was protecting the mine's important resources from recent thieves. The armor speaks fondly of Miss Ibis, calling her a talented and selfless person. The armor presents a document detailing the mundane problems of various townspeople. It explains the document contains the townspeople's worries and Ibis's proposed solutions. Kanato murmurs Ibis's name, his perception of her changing. The armor reveals that Ibis's dream is to create magical gadgets to help everyone. Kanato asks the suit of armor if it knows Ibis's current location. The armor explains it can feel a connection to her through her mana, but the location isn't precise. Kanato realizes that if they can follow that connection, they can find her, but wonders how to do so in the fog. Stepping forward, Kanato tells the others to leave it to him. He channels his energy, declaring that he can follow the trail of Ibis's mana. Kanato realizes that if Ibis's mana is controlling the armor, her control likely doesn't extend beyond the crystal forest. He deduces that his own magic, which specializes in mana control, can unravel the formula woven by her, similar to how a body flushes out toxins. With newfound determination, he believes he can follow the route her mana has left behind. Focusing his energy, Kanato casts Seitai magic, relaxation on the armor. He is certain that the route to find Ibis is hidden somewhere within the fog. The path is concealed within the complex magical formula itself. Kinato releases the spell, successfully deciphering the path. With a clear direction now visible to him, he shouts for the others to follow and sprints forward. His companions are amazed, with Elsie cheering and Talius remarking on the brilliance of visualizing a magic formula. Juna notes that trying to connect the dots in real time is an insane feat. Talius calls out, telling Kinato he's doing great. As they run, another adventurer, Zio from the Seraph Wings, catches up, equally impressed by Kinato's incredible mana control. Kinato is startled to recognize the boy from the rival guild. Zio gives a confident grin. Meanwhile, back in the town of Kizilani, word spreads that Elsie has gone to the Crystal Forest. The townsfolk worry about her safety and the state of the armor she went after. An older man, seemingly a foreman, resigns himself to the fact that Elsie won't give up on finding Ibis. A woman recalls that Ibis was irreplaceable to Elsie, the only one who could make her smile. Another worker admits that even though they see Ibis as a troublemaker, they all care about her. The foreman claps his hands, urging everyone to get back to work. Their work is interrupted by the arrival of the new mayor, Maria, and her boisterous boyfriend, Sid. Maria coldly tells the workers to listen to her now that she has taken over from her father. The townspeople are outraged, questioning her right to control the crystal mining, a resource left for all of them by their ancestors. Sid retorts that as mayor, all decisions regarding the city are up to Maria. Sid taunts the townsfolk, saying Kizilani can't make crafts without crystals and offers to sell them some. A townsman accuses them of secretly mining and diverting the crystals from the people. Sid glares back, challenging him to provide proof. It's revealed they hired the Seraph Wings to deal with interference, allowing Sid to claim the crystal forest for himself. Maria explains that the hired guild will clean out all the junk in the forest, and Sid laughs. Back in the forest, Zio excitedly learns that Kinato is 15, the same age as him. He notes that they both started as adventurers at the same time, and is happy to meet someone his age. Zio asks if it's okay to call him Kinato. Having never talked to anyone his age besides Linny, Kinato is flustered and unsure how to act, stammering out an awkward agreement. Talius impatiently asks how long they're going to keep this up. Zio clarifies he wasn't asking how long they'd run, but why Kinato became an adventurer. Zio proudly declares that he will be an adventurer forever because he was born to be a hero. As the group emerges from the fog, Juna points out the view and Kinato recognizes the road ahead. Zio explains his dream is to become a famous hero with a statue that inspires people to live better lives. He then turns and asks Kinato about his dream. Before Kinato can answer, Elsie spots something and points ahead. They have arrived at a large mechanical workshop built into the mountainside. Kinato realizes this must be Ibis's workshop. Suddenly Elsie dashes ahead, leaping over a railing much to Kinato's surprise. She runs towards the workshop, calling out for her master. Inside, they find Ibis collapsed on the floor, her body covered in glowing magical runes. Weakly, she looks up at Elsie and asks why she is here. Elsie cries out in concern as Ibis tells her she shouldn't have come. Kinato gently places a hand on Ibis's shoulder to assess her condition. As the rest of the group kneels by her side, Juna asks Kinato what's wrong with Ibis. Kinato explains that a magic formula is causing Ibis's mana to run rampant, consuming her from within. Ibis explains that a complex magic formula she wrote wouldn't stabilize, and the recoil burned the rampaging spell onto her own body. Kinato warns everyone to stay back. Suddenly, Talius leaps down from above, casting threads and telling everyone not to move. The threads instantly ensnare not only Ibis, but Kinato and his entire group as well, suspending them in midair. Lamia appears, glad she managed to restrain the hyperactive Zio, who is mortified to be caught. Elsie pleads with her to cut the threads, explaining that Ibis is very weak. Lamia coldly replies that weakness is good and that she intends to let Ibis weaken until she's on the verge of death. She states that since Ibis is the cause of the rampaging armor, she must be dealt with to fulfill her client's request. Lamia declares that Ibis must be taken care of. Ibis weakly tells Kinato's group to stay out of it and let the Seraph Wings handle it. Kinato, kneeling beside Ibis, defiantly says no. Lamia turns surprised and asks what he just said. He explains that Ibis worked hard making magic gadgets to bring the townspeople together. He refuses to let someone with such good intentions be sacrificed just for the sake of completing a mission. With a grunt, he begins to strain against the magical threads. With a determined shout, Kinato declares he won't abandon Ibis. Lamia warns him to stop, telling him he'll rip his own arms off. But Talius, seeing his resolve, encourages him, telling him to bare his iron fangs. Kinato unleashes his most powerful spell, Seitai Magic, Relaxation and Release, Ultimate Boost. Lamia is shocked to feel his magic spreading through her threads. She grunts, surprised by the sudden sensation. She feels all the tension begin to melt from her shoulders. The effect is overwhelming. Lamia's mind fills with images of relaxation as every muscle in her body goes limp and she loses the ability to control herself. She realizes it's a gentle magic. To her dismay, she realizes she has completely lost the will to fight. The spell affects everyone else, causing the other members of the Seraph wings to collapse. With the threat neutralized, the runes on Ibis's body fade away. Freed from her restraints, Elsie rushes forward and embraces her master. Elsie cries with relief, telling Ibis how glad she is that she's okay. Kinato looks on, apologizing to Elsie for worrying her. Kinato happily digs into a bowl of food, declaring it delicious. Talius heartily agrees that the food hits the spot. Juna savors the desserts, expressing her relief that both Elsie and Ibis are safe after the recent events. A grateful local announces he's treating all the adventurers to a celebratory feast. Kinato, with his mouth full, sheepishly apologizes for the ruckus. A townsman with a bandana tells Kinato that the townspeople can get a little wild, but reassures him it's because they don't have parties like this often. The man formally addresses Kinato as young adventurer. The man thanks Kinato for protecting Elsie, but Talius interrupts, telling him not to be so formal and introducing their group as the Invincible Iron Fangs. Elsie appears, calling Kinato's name and asking for a private word. Kinato turns, happy to see Ibis is with her. Elsie pulls a startled Kinato into a tight, emotional hug. She explains that if it weren't for his magic, a lot of damage could have been done to the town and its people. Looking at him with deep gratitude, she thanks him for coming all this way to help. Still held in an embrace, a flustered Kinato says he was just glad he could help. Elsie pulls back slightly, adding that she's also glad Ibis is okay. A nearby townsman overhears, noting that he had no idea they were protecting the crystal forest. Elsie tightens her grip, apologizing for the trouble but insisting they really helped out. Meanwhile, Juno reveals to the captured Cid and Maria that the rampaging armor was a defense against their illegal activities. The captured Cid and Maria furiously protest, demanding to be let go and claiming there's no proof. Juno coolly informs them that adventurers are tasked with maintaining civil order and arresting criminals. She adds that they destroyed all the suits of armor and, having completed their mission, will now accept payment. Talius adds a final mocking comment about the unfailing Seraph wings, much to the villain's dismay. To save herself, Maria quickly betrays Cid, revealing that there is proof of their deals in a safe. Cid curses Maria for her betrayal. Juno turns her attention away from the commotion and spots Kinato. Kinato explains that Talius asked him to bring her some food, to which Juno scoffs. Juno's gaze settles on Kinato's heavily bandaged arm, and she asks why he can't use his magic to heal himself. Kinato explains that for some reason, he can't control his magic when he tries to use it on his own body. He smiles, saying it's fine because his magic is for others, not himself. Juno understands and allows him a warning. Juno warns him that if he remains colorless forever, it will become a disadvantage for their guild. She tells him he must rise through the ranks because he's better than that. Juno's words leave Kinato looking thoughtful and concerned. Later, the townsfolk gather in the Kizilani City Plaza. The crowd murmurs anxiously, wondering why Elsie and Ibis have gathered them here. In a flashback, Elsie reassures Ibis that although her invention went out of control before, it will work this time. Ibis looks on nervously, wondering if everything will really be okay. A low rumble fills the air as the crowd looks up in shock. Ibis points, recognizing her master's workshop. The crowd cries out in disbelief, realizing that the workshop is floating. Elsie is shocked that the adventurers want to help her. Talius insists, reminding her that she nearly died making her gadget, so of course they want to help. Elsie admits that the gadget isn't stabilized and that her poor mana control causes it to fail. She explains it requires a continuous, powerful force to keep going. Talius points towards Kinato and Zio, presenting them as the power source she needs. Zio wonders if this means they're about to be worked to the bone. Zio heroically pours his energy into the machine. With Kanato shouting that he'll keep the mana stable, the team works in unison. Talius cheers them on, telling them to keep it up. Elsie stands at the controls, activating the magic formula. A flashback shows a young ibis excitedly looking at a flower encyclopedia. She explains that while flowers don't grow in their area, she loves looking at pictures of them. Ibis dreams aloud about how happy everyone would be if they had flowers. A smiling Elsie affectionately calls Ibis her talented apprentice. Elsie promises to create a meadow of flowers for her in Crystal City. From the flying workshop, a spectacular display erupts, filling the night sky with brilliant explosions of light that resemble blooming flowers. A spectacular crystal flower burst illuminates the night sky. The townspeople are amazed, mistaking the display for fireworks. Others watch in awe, calling the beautiful crystal flower rain stylish. With tears in her eyes, Ibis reaches for the raining crystal flowers, overjoyed that Elsie created a real meadow of flowers for her. Elsie shouts an apology to the crowd below. She passionately declares her desire to continue making magical gadgets, promising to create great things even if she messes up, because it's all she can do. A man in the crowd tells her not to be ridiculous. The crowd erupts not with anger but with requests, telling her to hurry up and make useful things to improve their lives. The first man finishes his thought, telling her to do it in her own way like only she can. Elsie laughs triumphantly, shouting, "Leave it to me." The townspeople, including Ibis, watch as the display continues. The workshop lands safely back in the town square. Kanato watches the happy scene and agrees that he's happy for Ibis, too. Zio approaches, calling Kanato's name to get his attention. Zio exclaims that thanks to Kanato, he now understands that kindness taken to its limit becomes determination, a key part of being a hero. He vows to keep racking up hero points and suggests they both continue on their own paths. Zio declares that if they meet again at the top, he'd like to go toe-to-toe with Kanato. Kanato quietly admits that his dream was just to become an adventurer. He tells Zio that if he stops there, he doesn't think he can live up to his expectations. Inspired, Kanato declares that he'll try to be more ambitious so he can become Zio's equal as an adventurer. The two rivals share a moment of mutual respect under the moonlit sky. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a grand, columned hallway. Jean walks with a determined expression, as it is announced that the kingdom's Council of 12 has reconvened. Within the kingdom, public order is maintained by two organizations, the Adventurers Association and the Magic Research Society, whose members form the kingdom's council. At a meeting of the Council of the 12, the chairwoman thanks the attendees and prepares to begin. However, she is immediately interrupted by the boisterous shouts of a fellow member, Uljan, who is ecstatically yelling about adventure. The meeting descends into chaos. The chairwoman yells at Uljan to be quiet, but he just laughs, declaring he'd rather quit his position and go on an adventure. Elsewhere at the long table, another young member cheerfully challenges Jean to a sparring match. The rest of the council members react with varying degrees of enthusiasm and annoyance. One man offers to take charge, while another just wants to go home. Jean, looking unnerved by the suggestion of a fight to near death, politely declines. The chairwoman tries to address Jean, but is repeatedly interrupted. Jean greets the boisterous chairman, who promises to visit his new guild. Suddenly, a strange device on the table activates, causing a minor explosion and disrupting the proceedings even further. The chairwoman, thoroughly exasperated, tries once more to get the meeting started. The chairwoman reveals the grave reason for the meeting. There have been many recent cases of magic users disappearing within the kingdom. Another council member adds that after several deaths were confirmed, the council has decided to investigate who is behind the incidents. The suggestion of simply taking out anyone suspicious is met with a request from Jean to switch seats away from his eager neighbor. The chairwoman declares that their highest priority is now to identify and eliminate any threat to the kingdom. The council members listen intently to the new directive. The scene shifts to a snowy town at night. Kanato and Ibis thank a group of adventurers for their help. The adventurers exchange friendly goodbyes. One of the adventurers enthusiastically offers his services as a magical gadget engineer for the future. Sid laughs maniacally, declaring they'll never see each other again as he runs off. Suddenly, Sid is tripped from behind and falls to the ground. Three mysterious figures approach the fallen Sid. The woman in the center, Hibiki, complains about being overworked, but her companion encourages her to press on. In the distance, Zio and his companion wonder who the strange newcomers are. Hibiki spots Kanato's group. Ibis identifies her own group, the Seraph Wings. The magical gadget engineer stands ready. Zio identifies his group as the Iron Fangs. Hibiki smiles, remarking how lucky they are to find so many sacrificial lambs at once. As she approaches, Sid angrily tells her to back off. To everyone's shock, Hibiki grabs Sid and kisses him, draining the life from him. The onlookers are stunned. Sid lets out a choked gasp as he's drained. Zio and Kanato watch in horror. As Sid collapses, Hibiki turns to the adventurers with a serene smile, expressing her hope that they will all come along as an offering. The hulking, skull-masked villain decides to just destroy them and take them by force. As he powers up for an attack, Ibis quickly orders an evacuation, telling the other Ibis to get the townspeople to safety. The villain unleashes a powerful, destructive wave. The villain's attack tears through the street, sending debris flying and townspeople screaming in terror. Zio leaps into action, confronting the villain and declaring his intent to stop the murderous rampage. Zio's attack is met with a powerful counter, sending him flying back. Kanato watches the destruction, realizing he must do something. The skull-masked villain casually remarks that Zio's attack wasn't bad. Resolved, Kanato lets out a battle cry and charges forward. He unleashes a massage ball super acceleration attack. The attack strikes the villain with no effect. Kanato can only stare in disbelief, as he realizes his attack was far too weak. The villain effortlessly swats Kanato away. Zio and another companion cry out Kanato's name in alarm. The villain notes with curiosity that Kanato is a colorless. Kanato lies broken on the ground, struggling to breathe and thinking only of the danger the townspeople are in. The villain struggles to move, annoyed at the magic used on the floral decorations. He calls them all fools for their efforts. Kanato sees the terrified faces of the townspeople he failed to protect. He questions his own words about wanting to be a kind adventurer who supports people. He remembers how people stronger than him like Zio encouraged and accepted him. He had started to believe he was a good adventurer just because he could adjust others' mana. But now, defeated, he pushes himself up from the rubble. He realizes that unless he can fight by himself, there's no way he can protect the kind people right in front of him. This realization fills him with a desperate, burning resolve. He remembers his childhood dream of becoming an adventurer. He recalls Ryan telling him she wished her magic could help tons of people. Ryan reminds him that he's been saying that since they were kids. Resolved, he decides he must use his magic on himself. He knows he can't normally control it when he does so, as it's too much of a burden. He recalls an elder's warning that his gentle magic is also very dangerous. Kanato unleashes his Seitai magic upon his own body, forcing it to comply. Zio can only shout Kanato's name in alarm as he witnesses the reckless act. The resulting explosion of power slams into the skull-masked villain, who grunts in pain. Pushing his body past its limits, Kanato activates Flow Boost Super Acceleration, shattering the villain's defense. His arm fractures under the strain, but his eyes burn with determination as he declares that he won't let the villain do any more damage to his town. Linny offers to explain why Kanato can't use his magic on himself. Kaminagi admits her curiosity, stating that she would definitely use such an ability for self-healing. Linny explains that when they were children, Kanato used his magic to save her from an animal attack. However, his lack of control at the time resulted in him suffering nearly fatal injuries. While Kaminagi assumes Kanato hesitates due to this trauma, Linny suggests he's more concerned about worrying his grandmother. She smiles fondly, remarking that Kanato's selfless nature hasn't changed at all. The chapter begins with the title Kanato's Magic. Kanato fights back as the villain stands over the fallen hero. Talius and Juna cry out Kanato's name in alarm. Kanato stands defiant, facing his monstrous opponent. He grits his teeth, his body pulsing with the strain of his own magic. Kanato assesses his own injuries, fractures and lacerations from his landing, and a shredded right hand. With grim determination, he resolves to stop the villain, no matter how much it hurts. The villain casually remarks that it was a pretty good punch. He analyzes Kanato's ability to accelerate mana for a physical boost, noting that its effectiveness depends entirely on the user's precision. The villain unleashes his power, enraged by the weakness of Kanato's body and demanding to know if he's even fighting seriously. Kanato is stunned by the sudden outburst of power. Talius and the others are equally shocked by the villain's intimidating presence. Hibiki smiles, finding the cries of pain to be adorable. The villain muses that while he has fought many mages, none were worthy sacrifices and the thrill was fleeting. He scoffs at their training, calling them insects who break too easily and deeming Kanato's magic and strength as lacking. He questions why Kanato would dare challenge him when he is so clearly unready. The villain lunges, threatening to kill the boy for his insolence. Tallius shouts his own codename, Ogre, as he leaps into the fray. Kanato evades the villain's charge. Tallius's attack misses the villain and causes a large explosion on a nearby building. Furious at the interruption, the villain demands the interfering brat to show himself. Tallius and Juna rush to Kanato's side, and he acknowledges their presence. Tallius expresses his shock at how badly injured Kanato is. He urges Kanato not to be so reckless and to cast the magic on them instead. Kanato explains that staying near them would make him a target and slow them down. He concludes that by using the magic on himself, he can guarantee a consistent output, regardless of his own injuries. With renewed resolve, Kanato vows to stop the villain, willing to sacrifice his own body to protect the town. Juna and Tallius watch with pained expressions. Kanato thinks about the destruction of his village, strengthening his will to fight. Tallius observes that despite his brave front, Kanato is trembling. Recalling a past battle of his own, Tallius understands that some fights must be seen through to the end, no matter the fear. A trapped comrade screams for Tallius to flee, believing the monster is unbeatable. Tallius fiercely declares that he cannot run, or there will be no one left to protect them. The monster roars in the background, a testament to the danger they face. Watching from afar, Jean acknowledges Tallius's newfound determination. Tallius apologizes to Kanato, saying he's snapped out of his hesitation and won't let Kanato's resolve be in vain. He declares that the Iron Fangs will protect the town and defeat their enemy. The villain suddenly appears behind him, asking who he intends to protect the town from. The attack sends them flying back into the dining hall they were just in. The Iron Fangs are sent crashing through a wall, landing defeated amidst the rubble of a dining hall. The villain mockingly asks if one hit was all it took to defeat them. Kanato struggles to stay conscious after the powerful attack. Kanato shields Juna from the debris, assuring her he's all right. The villain threatens to start killing the hiding townsfolk to motivate the heroes. The threat snaps Kanato to attention as Tallius calls his name. Tallius explains his ability to summon goblins, reshape them into arrows, and swap places with them a limited number of times. Tallius tells a stunned Kanato that it's time to kick things up a notch. He declares that it's now the Iron Fang's turn to fight. The villain is surrounded by a swarm of Tallius's bouncing goblin familiars. Tallius teleports and lands a powerful kick on the villain. The villain comments that the magic is quite simple once understood. Tallius grabs a large goblin familiar and prepares to attack. However, the villain easily catches him mid-teleport. As he kicks Tallius, the villain acknowledges that he's aware Tallius is more than just a helpless brat. Tallius materializes a bow and prepares to fire at the villain. The villain dodges the arrow, anticipating Tallius's teleport. He strikes the spot where Tallius should have appeared, knowing he can switch places with his arrows. Spitting blood, Tallius calls the villain an idiot, revealing this is his final teleport. He teleports away, leaving the villain open for an attack. The feint works, and Kanato lands a devastating punch directly to the villain's face. The villain realizes with a shock that Tallius didn't teleport there. He understands that the plan was to let Kanato attack him head-on. Kanato focuses, channeling his super acceleration into a single part of his body for maximum impact. Seeing Kanato's hands are broken, the villain prepares for a leg attack, letting out a roar. Kanato's attack connects with devastating force, shattering the villain's mask. The villain is shocked by the unexpected, powerful blow. He realizes in disbelief that Kanato attacked with his already broken right hand. Tallius cheers, telling Kanato he did it. Panting but triumphant, Kanato tells the villain to get out of his town, praised by Tallius as a true man. The cost of his last attack was far greater than he anticipated. He's left unable to use his right eye or his boost magic, with barely enough mana to use them at the same time. His entire body screams in pain, but amidst the agony, a grim smile spreads across his face. His legs tremble, barely able to support his weight. He finds the situation wonderful. The skull-masked villain, impressed by Kanato's resilience, decides it would be a waste to use him as a mere sacrifice. Instead, he declares he'll take the boy for himself. From the sidelines, a battered Tallius watches in disbelief that Kanato is still trying to fight. The villain claps his hands together, gathering his power and demanding everyone's attention. He announces he's about to release his magic, warning Kanato not to run or die too soon. Juna and another ally scream for Kanato to get back. He believes he can still move just enough to fight. Kanato pushes himself forward, determined to defeat his foe right here and now. The villain watches with amusement, pleased by the boy's spirit. Suddenly, a new figure appears, stomping his foot down hard on the villain's head. It's Jean, his expression cold and composed as dark, swirling energy emanates from him. With a smirk, Jean crushes the villain's skull mask under his boot and looks down, informing his foe that playtime is over. An explosion rips through a nearby building as the villain is sent flying. The villain looks up in shock, impressed by the newcomer's strength. Jean acknowledges his opponent is strong. He stands amidst clouds of dark magic, warning that unfortunately for him, Jean has a lot of energy to burn off today. Watching from a rooftop, Hibiki and her companion are stunned by the turn of events. Below, Captain Raid and his associate Lamia observe the unusual situation, with Lamia noting that no one told her captains would be sent. Raid's subordinates are shocked to see him. Ajim, the head of the barrier department, appears through a portal, complaining about his back. He tells Raid and Jean to find their own way home before his portal closes. A subordinate identifies the man as Ajim, head of the barrier department at the Magic Research Society. Ajim, a veteran researcher who manages teleportation barriers, confirms he'll handle things on his end. Hibiki's companion tells her to go investigate the intruders. Lamia apologizes to Raid for the trouble. The scene flashes back 40 minutes to a Council of 12 meeting where a member asked Raid what was wrong. Instead of speaking, Raid explained via notepad that he was sharing Lamia's sight, though a council member questioned the need for an emoji. He revealed that suspicious individuals connected to the incident had been found, causing shock around the table. Jean commented on how the captain of the Seraph Wings always gets straight to the point, though he never laughs at his jokes. Raid wrote Jean's name, informing him that his crew was also in trouble. He then wrote Ajim's name to summon him, causing the researcher to react. Back in the present, Kanato watches Jean's arrival. The villain Noise stares in disbelief, realizing captains are here. He knows that captains are on a completely different level than even gold-ranked adventurers. Looking at the battered heroes, Jean reflects on Talius, a passionate and devoted man. He thinks of Juna, who despite her shyness, has the guts to face the enemy when it counts. He considers Kanato to be ridiculously kind and full of potential. He sees that they all look like hell, but it's clear they fought with everything they had to protect their town. Jean's hand curls as dark energy swirls around him, forming into sharp projectiles. He asks, "But are you ready?" With a confident smile, surrounded by his deadly magic, Jean finishes his question, "For me." Noise laughs maniacally, declaring it his lucky day and that he'll take Jean for himself too. Jean stands ready, surrounded by his magic. He unleashes a massive volley of dark projectiles towards his enemy. Jean simply says the villain's name, Noise, as he attacks. The spiky-haired man grabs Hibiki, telling Noise it's time to go home just as Jean's attack rains down. The impacts create a massive explosion, narrowly missing the fleeing villains. Kanato watches in awe at the incredible power of Jean's attack. Jean comments that it was a close one. As they retreat, Noise struggles, wanting to fight, while Hibiki yells at him to stop flailing. The villains barely escape the attack, blocked by a massive construct of paper-like magic. Raid reveals his technique, Ex Machina. Undeterred, Jean prepares another attack, a stabbing rain. Noise curses as his group prepares to regroup. Kanato leaps towards them, demanding they apologize to the people of the town before they run. Noise is surprised that Kanato used his last bit of strength to leap over to them. He tells the boy they'll settle this someday, and that he'd better hone his skills until then. Noise challenges Kanato to destroy each other as many times as it takes. Landing heavily on a rooftop, Kanato pants for breath. He will not let him get away. His resolve unbroken, he vows to stop the villain with his magic, no matter how many times it takes. His strength finally gives out and Kanato sways. He collapses, but Jean appears instantly, catching him before he hits the ground. Jean tells him he put up a great fight. Looking over the smoldering town, Jean tells Kanato he did a good job. A memory of a young Kanato happily running home flashes through his mind. He remembers wanting to tell his grandmother everything. The memory is replaced by a horrifying nightmare. A skeletal figure in a dark hood looms over a destroyed town, informing Kanato that he is the only one left and that it is time to fight. Kanato snaps awake with a gasp, his face covered in bandages and sweat. Linny, a young woman in a nurse's uniform, looks over, relieved to see Kanato is finally awake. He groggily asks where he is, and she explains that he was tossing and turning in his sleep. She explains he was brought to the hospital, and it has been 3 days since he arrived. Kanato is shocked to learn he was asleep for 3 days, but Linny reassures him. Kanato thanks Linny but questions her nurse costume, and she proudly declares she was by his side day and night. She explains that this is the perfect outfit for nursing someone back to health. Kanato apologizes for causing her trouble, but she dismisses it as part of her job. Her expression turns serious as she admits that seeing him in such rough shape made her realize something. She feels responsible, thinking she might be the one who pushed him too hard. Linny confesses that she wondered if he would have been happier staying in town and running the clinic. But even though she's scared and worried, she feels it's her responsibility to see this through. With tears streaming down her face, she admits the real reason she's here. She doesn't want to be apart from him. Moved, Kanato tells her that even if he can't use magic, he can still watch over her. He then apologizes for making her worry so much. Linny playfully denies being worried and pulls Kanato into a tight hug, making him cry out in pain. Their moment is interrupted by a woman who reminds them they're in a hospital, teasingly offering them a key to lock the door. Jean tells her that's not helping. Kanato, still trapped in Linny's hug, recognizes Jean. Kanato frantically asks Jean about the town and everyone's safety. Jean calms him down, explaining that the kingdom has sent a reconstruction team. He adds that thanks to Kanato putting his body on the line, none of the townspeople were injured, and his friends are recovering nearby. Kanato slumps in relief, glad to hear the news. The woman, Kureha, chides him for getting so carried away that he ended up grossly beat up. Kureha announces it's time for his medicine, and massive octopus-like tentacles emerge from behind her, enveloping him. Jean explains that while most magic is developed through individual training, some is passed down through bloodlines, growing more powerful with each generation. He introduces Kureha as an old friend whose family possesses a rare form of healing magic, prompting a terrified Linny to question if it's really healing. Kureha comments that Kanato's Seitai magic seems versatile but tricky to handle. As her tentacles touch Kanato's arm, he's amazed to feel his wounds immediately begin to close up. He notes how different her magic is from his own natural healing promotion. Kureha explains that her family's magic weaves damaged cells and tissues back together directly, making it superior for deep wounds where his own magic falls behind. Kureha warns Kanato that if he goes overboard again, he'll wreck his mana circuits and lose his magic forever. The thought of being unable to help anyone leaves Kanato speechless. Seeing his reaction, Kureha declares the treatment is over for the day and tells him to do some soul-searching. Jean arrives and asks Kureha if she's hurt, but she says she's fine. She clicks her tongue in annoyance, and Jean cheekily asks if she can at least break a bone for him, much to her irritation. Kanato is startled by a voice from the bed next to him. A spiky-haired boy named Zio dramatically introduces himself, declaring that Kanato should be honored to be near him. Linny wonders if Kanato has made a new friend, and he awkwardly introduces Zio. Linny cheerfully introduces herself to a flustered Zio. Zio, blushing, manages a shy sup in response to Linny's greeting. He then dives under his covers, flustered that a cute girl appeared. The interaction leaves all three of them feeling equally awkward. Zio laments that letting the villains get away was a lifetime disgrace for a hero, but Jean mentions the Seraph Wings will handle security now. Jean reminds Zio that he helped evacuate the townspeople, surprising Kanato. Zio explains that he was able to reach people who were about to be trapped under rubble. He asks why Kanato is surprised, reminding him that he's a hero. Kanato is genuinely impressed by Zio's heroism. Just then Talius and Juna burst into the room, calling out Kanato's name. Juna is overjoyed that Kanato is awake, and he recognizes his friends Talius and Juna. Talius rushes to his bedside and bows deeply, apologizing. He admits he felt useless, and that it was his fault Kanato had to push himself so hard. He swears that from now on, he will get stronger than anyone. Juna chimes in, declaring that she'll get stronger too, so Kanato can rely on her. Their passionate declarations leave Kanato stunned. Looking out the window, Kanato quietly says that he feels the same way. He also wants to change. Looking back on recent events, he reflects on his own shortcomings. He realizes that everyone always had to encourage him or lend him a helping hand. Inspired by his friends, he resolves that he wants to help out the guild even more. Kanato declares his desire to be as strong as Zio and to protect people. He knows that to achieve this, he has to be able to do things on his own. Holding up his guild crest, Kanato announces his new goal. He's going to fight, win, and protect by mastering his body-boosting magic. Kureha watches him, sighing about the follies of youth. She snaps back to reality, yelling at him and asking if he even listened to a word she said. Kureha grabs Kanato's face, telling him he's an idiot and repeating her warning that using that magic again could ruin his abilities. She insists that magic is deeply tied to both mind and body. She states bluntly that as far as she can tell, he's not cut out for combat. She explains that he can't tell when he's hit his limit, which is why he's about to destroy himself with the burden of his magic. Jean intervenes, calmly pointing out that what Kanato needs to learn, then, is precise control of his mana and physical reinforcement. With a grin, Jean announces he has an idea for Kanato's training. He tells Kanato he'll take a break from missions to start training while he recovers. He's sending Kanato to train with experts in mana manipulation, the Majo clan. The name sends a shockwave through the room. Kanato is intrigued, but Kureha calls Jean an idiot for the suggestion. Jean explains that it will be the perfect place for Kanato to train, as nobody is better at handling mana than the women of the Majo. He adds that they are also the fiercest warrior clan he knows of, leaving Kanato, Zio, and Linny staring in stunned silence. Kanato trembles as he eyes a skull marking their path, feeling a deep sense of unease. While walking along a narrow cliffside path, Kanato nervously asks Jean if he has ever met the Majo clan before. Jean explains that they helped him out ages ago, which is why he decided to visit them. Despite Kanato's worries about showing up unannounced, Jean strikes a pose and insists it's totally fine. Jean reassures him that they aren't bad at all and are actually quite close, which makes a relieved Kanato glad that Jean is with him. As they climb higher, Kanato notes the thinning air. Jean confirms they've entered Majo clan territory and advises him to be careful. Jean explains that the Majo are mana experts and will attack anyone using mana recklessly, assuming they are a marauder. Kanato feels a tingling sensation as petals of mana float around him. He realizes the very atmosphere is saturated with mana, a sensation he's felt ever since they started their ascent. Jean, however, is suddenly distracted, marveling at the surroundings and excitedly pointing out some sugar grass. The scene flashes back to a few days earlier. A frustrated Zio complains that he wanted to see the Majo clan too, but Lamia scheduled him for another mission. Zio asks for souvenirs from the trip, but Kanato doubts it's that kind of place. Kanato shows off the new bandage Kureha gave him, telling Zio he's not supposed to take it off. Kanato voices his own apprehension, unable to believe he's going to a place feared even by seasoned adventurers. He then sees Talius and Juna hiding under a blanket with Zio, all terrified at the mere mention of the Majo clan's village. Zio recounts rumors that the Majo clan will snatch up and punish anyone who so much as steps foot in their territory. He warns a gulping Kanato to be careful. Ignoring the warnings, Zio and Juna make their souvenir requests, while Kanato reiterates that he doubts such things are available there. Linny, worried about the danger, offers to accompany Kanato, startling him. He bluntly refuses, telling Linny it would be far more dangerous if she came along. Hurt by his harsh refusal, Linny snaps that he can forget she even asked. Back in the present, Kanato takes a drink, resolving that he doesn't want to make Linny worry more than he already has. Seeing his determination, Jean tells him not to be scared. Jean encourages Kanato, telling him he needs to get stronger so he can protect those around him. He states that the Majo clan's village is where Kanato will achieve that strength. A masked figure in the Majo clan's uniform gracefully leaps down from the cliff. The mysterious warrior's eyes narrow from beneath her wide-brimmed hat. Kanato stares in shock, realizing someone is standing effortlessly on the sheer rock walls. The figure lands directly in their path, startling both Kanato and Jean. The warrior identifies Jean by his braid and facial scar, labeling him the criminal Jean. Kanato is completely baffled by the accusation. The warrior accuses Jean of being an insolent fool who disrupted the clan's order and vows to deal with him. She launches a powerful attack that shatters the rock face. The warrior calls out Jean's name. A panicked Kanato asks Jean why a supposed friend is attacking them, but Jean finds the situation just as odd. Jean decides on a change of strategy, telling Kanato to hold on as they make a mad dash for the village. The warrior sounds a whistle, signaling for reinforcements. A swarm of Majo clan members on flying creatures descends from the sky, their battle cries echoing through the canyon. The warriors close in on them from all sides. As they are quickly surrounded, Jean grimly admits that this might be bad. They arrive at Skydragon, the Majo clan's village, a designated high-risk zone perched precariously on mountaintops. The main building is flanked by two intimidating guards. The clan members immediately identify Jean as a criminal and Kanato as a man, both clearly unwelcome. The warriors surround them, shouting to punish and purge the intruders. A terrified Kanato turns to Jean, pointing out that this reception doesn't align with his story at all. A commanding hand is raised, and a voice bellows for silence, immediately quelling the crowd. A leader apologizes for the hostility, explaining that everyone is on edge while preparing for the Lunar Fighting Festival. Jean replies that it's no problem, apologizing for their unannounced arrival. They are brought before the clan leadership, where Captain Karyu explains the Majo are on edge, while Captain Latna laughs at their terrible timing. Karyu acknowledges their reason for being there, to have Kanato learn Majo techniques. However, Karyu flatly refuses their request, telling him to go home before he gets himself killed. The Majo clan chief declares that their subconscious mana manipulation techniques, a legacy cultivated over hundreds of years, will not be taught to just anyone. Latna mockingly calls out Jean as a criminal, daring him to say he forgot what he did. Kanato looks at Jean, confused and wondering what in the world happened. An elder angrily recounts how decades ago Jean showed up uninvited to train, then simply ate, slept, and did whatever he pleased. She adds that he would have been killed on the spot if not for the clan chief's mercy. Karyu explains that men have a dark history of selfishness within their clan, as Latna eagerly declares it's time to settle things with the criminal Jean. Jean turns to a dismayed Kanato, admitting he was too optimistic about their welcome. Karyu grabs Kanato to escort him out, telling him to just go home. He stops her, asking a personal question. She assumes he's about to beg for Jean. Kanato clarifies it's not about Jean, whom he's sure can figure something out on his own. Kanato asks Karyu if she feels any stiffness in her shoulders or lower back. Both Jean and Latna are shocked by the bizarre question. He explains that from pushing her body and mana to their limits, he senses her pelvis is slightly out of alignment. One of the Majo warriors stifles a laugh. The surrounding clan members burst into laughter, declaring that Lady Karyu is always in tip-top shape and telling him not to make them laugh. As the clan members mock a man for claiming to know about mana, Kanato meekly says he was just curious and hoping he could help. Intrigued by his offer to help, Karyu challenges him to give it a try. She boasts that their mana has remained untouched by outsiders for years, and it's a miracle it has. She cracks her knuckles, warning that if his attempt yields no results, she'll return the favor with her fists. Undeterred, Kanato agrees and prepares to use his Seitai magic for a pelvic realignment. As Kanato's magic flows into her, Karyu lets out a sharp cry, her body reacting instantly to the unexpected sensation. The other Majo clan members look on, confused by their captain's reaction. Karyu is astonished, wondering at the strange feeling coming from within her as she realizes her body feels much lighter. Jean stares in disbelief, shocked that Kanato actually managed to adjust her. Karyu is stunned by the effect of Kanato's magic, feeling her body become much lighter. The surrounding Majo guards look on in shock at their captain's reaction. Kanato, unaware of her internal reaction, asks how she feels and offers to make further adjustments. Blushing and flustered, Karyu quickly denies that the magic worked at all. A shocked Kanato apologizes profusely and begs for another chance. Before Karyu can protest, Kanato grabs her, promising to fix whatever is bothering her. Kanato begins aggressively poking and prodding Karyu, trying to find the source of her supposed discomfort. The other Majo guards, misinterpreting the scene, wonder what is happening. Enraged by the manhandling, Karyu declares his actions an attack. The guards fly into a rage, shouting that Lady Karyu has been attacked and demanding punishment. Just as the guards are about to swarm Kanato, a booming voice yells, "That's enough." The chief's power sends a shockwave through the room, knocking all the guards to the ground. Kanato stares in awe, realizing the immense power of the village chief who subdued everyone in an instant. The chief addresses Karyu by name. The chief asks for Karyu's assessment of the boy's magic. Flustered, Karyu tries to lie, claiming it was unremarkable, but Latna loudly contradicts her. The chief simply says, "I see," having heard enough. The chief announces their decision to take Kanato and Jean into custody. Karyu and the others are shocked by the chief's declaration. Kanato panics, whispering to Jean about the possibility of being stuffed and mounted. Suddenly, a new voice objects to the chief's decision. Sazaku, captain of the North Guard, declares that the Majo cannot be tolerant of outsiders who have entered their territory. She points out that one of them is a criminal whom everyone wants to see punished. Sazaku argues that if the chief doesn't lead by example, it will damage their pride. Karyu warns Sazaku to watch her tone, while Latna insists they follow the chief's orders. Latna threatens to shut Sazaku up if she intends to disobey the chief. The tension escalates as Sazaku challenges Latna, asking if he wants to fight. Jin notes to a worried Kanato that they are being excluded from the conversation. The chief cuts in, stating there's no intention of welcoming the invaders. However, the chief explains they cannot be discourteous as a member of the Council of the 12 personally requested a favor. The chief turns the argument back on Sazaku, stating that being rude to their guests would be the very thing to damage the Majo's pride. Cornered, Sazaku sarcastically agrees with the chief. The other guards watch with stern expressions. The chief leads the prisoners away down a seemingly endless spiral staircase. The chief explains that the guards were only trying to protect the clan's dignity, and Kanato apologizes for their intrusion. The chief leads them to a large sealed door, declaring it their cell. Latna warns them not to cause trouble. Kanato gets a strong sense of déjà vu, while Jin laments the lack of good food in their future. The door cracks open, revealing their fate. Inside, Kanato and Jin are astonished to find not a cell, but a massive library carved into the cavern walls. Kanato and Jin look around in disbelief at the bookshelves. The chief reveals it's their personal study. The chief states that while they are prisoners, there is no harm in letting them stay in the library. The imposing figure removes the cloak and mask, revealing a petite young woman. She introduces herself as Terasi, chief of the Majo clan, and grants the two men permission to look upon her, telling them to be honored. Kanato and Jin are dumbfounded by the chief's true appearance. Kanato blurts out that she's the same height as him. From outside, Karyu and Latna yell at them to watch their tongues. The two captains gush over their cute and charismatic chief. Ignoring the commotion, Terasi extends her hand, telling Kanato to use his magic on her. Kanato obliges, activating his power. As Kanato's magic flows into her, Terasi is momentarily taken aback. Kanato explains that his magic is meant to be used on others, the opposite of the Majo who can only control their own mana. When Terasi asks what he wants to learn from them, Kanato declares he wants to learn how to use his magic to boost his own physical skills. He admits in his thoughts that he doesn't fully understand it himself. Terasi questions why he would use a magic whose true power is revealed on others to fight for himself. She asks why he would expose himself to danger like that. Kanato replies that he doesn't want to regret having this magic. Jin adds that even if helping others is the right thing, he doesn't want to give up on his own potential. When Terasi asks if he will struggle even if it's futile, Kanato resolutely agrees, saying he'll struggle as much as he has to. Kanato declares that he came here because he wants to protect his home and the people around him. Hearing his desire to protect where he belongs, Terasi looks at him with newfound understanding. She tells him that, in that case, he's just like her. Seeing his conviction, Terasi agrees that his magic is useful and offers to have Karyu and Latna train him. Kanato is overjoyed and Jin congratulates him. However, Karyu and Latna burst in, refusing to train outsiders. Terasi gives Kanato an ultimatum. He has 1 month to learn how to use his magic to boost his abilities. Terasi finishes her sentence with a chilling condition. If he fails, he will live there for the rest of his life, supplying healing magic to the Majo. She explains this is the only way there's an advantage for them to train him. As the door slams shut, she wishes him luck in his struggle. Panicked, Kanato realizes he might have to live there forever, but Jin tells him not to wimp out. Outside, Terasi muses that the outsiders might bring a breath of fresh air to the village. She worries about Sazaku and the militant faction making a move. But more importantly, that was the first time she had ever talked to a man. Terasi is left a blushing, flustered mess, trying to compose herself as the chief. Meanwhile, Kanato's grueling training has already begun. From a distance, Terasi peeks from behind a tree, observing the scene. Under direct orders from Lady Terasi, two Maja reluctantly agree to start Kanato's training, to which he eagerly agrees. For the first exercise, Latna effortlessly lifts a giant boulder, telling Kanato to do the same. A stunned Kanato asks if she's using a physical boost, but Latna is confused by the question. She confirms it's her own strength, making Kanato realize the first hurdle is already too high. The masked trainer explains that for the Majo, manipulating mana is as natural as breathing. He states it's completely intuitive, leaving Kanato to wonder how he could possibly learn it. Kanato resolves to try anyway, attempting to use his satel magic to accelerate his body. He focuses intensely, hoping he won't self-destruct, and unleashes a burst of power. His clothes explode off his body, leaving him shirtless. Watching from afar, Teresi can't believe he just made his clothes explode. Teresi decides she must write down her observations. She notes that 3 days have passed since Kanato arrived, and he wants to learn the Majo's boosting arts. She writes that while Kanato's magic seems weak, it wasn't destructive. Instead, it was a spell that soothed the body and soul, making her feel incredibly relaxed in an instant. She shakes her head, telling herself to get back on track and continue her entry. Teresi writes that if their village could gain the power of his magic, it would be a huge advantage. After observing him, she is certain of one thing. There is absolutely no way a weakling like him will be able to fulfill the agreement. She giggles, thinking to herself that it's a brilliant plan. She's startled when the masked trainer appears behind her, asking what she is doing. On the 6th day, Teresi observes that the small man is still in good spirits despite being completely run down. She thinks he's a stubborn man for persisting even when he can barely stand. His trainers yell at him to keep up and build his stamina, and he apologizes between breaths. He acknowledges his weakness and resolves to build himself up to become a fighter. With renewed determination, he tells himself he can do it and leaps forward. Kanato looks back in terror as he realizes he's about to fall off a cliff. He screams as he plummets down the steep drop. His trainers briefly wonder if he'll be okay, but Latna casually says she doesn't know. As he falls, Kanato panics, realizing he can't use his magic to save himself. He is caught midair, looking up in shock to see who saved him. Teresi lands gracefully on a rock pillar, holding the rescued Kanato. Teresi tells Kanato that while she enjoys watching him struggle, she'd rather not see him die. Latna and the masked trainer applaud her incredible agility. Kanato thanks her profusely from the water, and she coolly tells him he owes her. Latna remarks on how wonderful it is that their chief documents everything so diligently. Meanwhile, Teresi is secretly flustered, noting in her chronicle that it was her first time touching a man's body. Night falls over the Majo village. Kanato lets out a sneeze, feeling the effects of the day. He gloomily heads to the baths, feeling pathetic and sore from the day's training. He's startled to find Latna emerging from the bathhouse. Latna cheerfully invites him to join her, but a flustered Kanato tries to back away. Latna complains that men are a pain as she drags Kanato towards the bath. She throws the doors open, telling him to stop being so shy. Inside, they find Teresi, who has just unwrapped her chest bindings, revealing her muscular physique. Everyone is stunned. Seeing her chief in such a state, Latna lets out a squeal and faints. Later in the hot springs, Teresi asks Latna how Kanato is doing. Latna replies that he has determination but is hopeless without more muscle. Teresi has another thought, but Latna gets out of the water. Latna calls out to Kanato, telling him to do the thing he always does after training. A flustered Kanato asks if she means right now, in front of everyone. He begs her to put something on first, but she just seems confused. Latna scoffs at his shyness, calling men timid for making a fuss over her chest. As a curious Teresi watches, Kanato explains that he helps loosen Latna's muscles after her training. He explains that he uses his satel magic to help with her flexibility. Latna sighs in pleasure as Kanato's magic works on her, massaging and rubbing her muscles. Teresi watches the scene, blushing and intrigued. Latna stretches, remarking how good she feels after the magic treatment. She feels so great, in fact, that she decides to go for another run, much to Kanato's disbelief. Kanato tries to explain that's just how Latna is. He turns to find Teresi, telling him it's time to repay her. She asks him to use his magic on her, requesting that he do it slowly and gently. As Kanato uses his magic, Teresi asks if he was born with his unique eyes. He explains that he can see the flow of mana and abnormalities in others, but cannot use the ability on himself or for physical boosts. He realizes that in that case, his training might be nothing but pain. Teresi agrees, adding that in their world, innate skills are everything and they are not easily changed. Teresi explains that as chief, she is burdened with a long history and takes pride in protecting their unchanging customs. She firmly believes that change is not always progress. Kanato quietly says that he understands that feeling. He continues, saying that if there's something you want to change about yourself, you have to try. He tells a stunned Teresi that he thinks it's important to try, even if you aren't able to change in the end. Teresi is left speechless by his words. She suddenly stands up, startling Kanato and praising his sentiment. She tells him to stand, declaring that she is going to give him a reward. Kanato is confused, saying he didn't do anything to deserve a reward. Teresi holds out her hand and instructs him to place his palm against hers. Their palms mate under the moonlight. She begins to instruct him in a series of blocks against her strikes. She explains that this is macarenge, a dance that Majo learn as children which begins slowly. Kanato is amazed as he feels her mana flowing into him. Teresi tells him to gradually increase the power to refine his control as the dance speeds up. Kanato struggles to keep up, thinking it's impossible to learn this in just 1 month. Kanato loses his balance, swaying precariously over Teresi. He falls, landing on top of her in the water. He pops up with a grin, thanking her and saying he just needs to master this new technique. A flustered Teresi shoves him away, telling the fool not to get so close. She furiously writes in her journal that caution is essential when dealing with men. The macarenge is a traditional dance of the Majo, a unified performance where dancers synchronize and amplify the flow of their mana. As the dance grows faster and more powerful, it requires instantaneous and precise control, a difficult feat that Kanato is now attempting to learn. Kanato desperately tries to keep up, his mind racing to follow the steps and manage the flow of mana. If he fails to channel his own mana to counter the impacts, he'll be sent flying. He understands that to control the mana used in martial arts, he must assess his opponent's output and match it perfectly. But if either dancer falters, the consequences could be disastrous. The synchronized mana erupts, sending a reeling Kanato stumbling backward. If one of them falters, all the heightened mana explodes, putting them in danger. His partner Karyu sighs that it burst again. The failure leaves Kanato gasping for breath, feeling like he's going to be sick. Seeing his state, Latna tells him to take a break, promising she'll be ready for him when he is. Latna offers Kanato a traditional remedy, telling him to swallow it to wake himself up. Though he's hesitant, he accepts. The Maringan is a traditional remedy from the Majo village, said to restore stamina and even increase mana capacity. As Karyu notes she's used to it, Latna warns that the remedy is so disgusting it can make you pass out. Suddenly, someone exclaims that the effects are kicking in. Re-energized, Kanato leaps to his feet, declaring to Latna that he feels better than ever. Latna explains to a concerned Karyu that he gets like this every time he takes Maringan. As he gets punched away during the renewed training, his zealous cries echo. A silent Teresi watches from afar, taking notes. From his cage, Jean asks a startled Teresi if she's worried about Kanato. She calls him a criminal and tells him to worry about himself, but Jean cheerfully remarks how comfortable his portable prison is. Teresi admits she'd be lying if she said she wasn't concerned, noting that men rarely come to the village, but his magic seems beneficial. Jean realizes she is assessing Kanato. Teresi confesses that her chest aches slightly when she thinks about Kanato, and she doesn't know why. Jean is shocked by her words. She explains that she's scoured her books, but can find nothing about these strange symptoms and can't tell her tribe for fear of worrying them. She turns to Jean and asks if he has ever heard of such a thing before. Jean asks Teresi to listen calmly. He instructs her not to tell anyone else about her symptoms and asks for her cooperation to figure out the cause. Teresi agrees to his terms. Jean privately smirks, plotting to make her heart-pounding naivete his own. Teresi continues, confiding that Kanato appeared in her dream last night. Jean is so stunned by what he calls her overwhelming purity that he needs a moment to compose himself. Elsewhere, a woman with an eye patch learns from her subordinate that the Lunar Fighting Festival is only 2 weeks away. The eye patch-wearing woman notes that the outsiders have adapted well and are living peacefully. She worries that Lady Teresi will be influenced by them, bringing progressive ideas to the village. She asserts that a true Majo should reject things they dislike with pure, unadulterated violence. Her subordinate mentions that some people, like old Lady Nan, are still displeased with the men's presence. The woman declares that they must prove themselves with their strength at the decennial Lunar Fighting Festival. Under the moonlight, Kanato walks alone, deep in thought. He reflects that Latna was right. He isn't cut out for boosting, as he understands the logic but simply can't control the mana. After dancing with both Karyu and Latna, he is painfully aware of his shortcomings. Kinato contemplates how reckless he was to boost himself back then. He was forcing his mana to accelerate through a body that wasn't ready, putting himself in the same state as one of his massage balls. He concludes that some things can't be mastered through visualization alone, they must be experienced. Furthermore, the flow of mana is different for each move of the dance, requiring focused control at every point. His thoughts are interrupted as Teresi appears, startling him. He greets her as Lady Teresi, observing that she's had another rough day. She tells him that while he might not see it, his mana capacity has increased, proving that good medicine is always bitter. Teresi warns Kinato that things will only get tougher from here on out. He thanks her and the other Majo, promising to see it through to the end. Moved by his determination, she considers his words. Teresi offers to give him some pointers on Macarenge right now. Kinato politely declines her offer, explaining that he doesn't want to trouble her now that he's finally starting to sync with Latna and Keryu. Teresi's face falls in disappointment. Seeing her sulking, Kinato quickly adds that he has been worried about something and asks if she would hear him out. Her mood instantly brightens as she grabs him, eagerly demanding he tell her what's on his mind. Kinato asks about his mana control during the dance. He's figured out the flow of physical boosting, but his mana won't settle and stabilize for some reason. Teresi finds it frustrating that something she does naturally is so hard to explain, a sentiment Kinato says Keryu shared. Teresi wishes he could control his mana naturally, like with his Satal magic. Kinato muses that while the physical boosting technique is tough, his own support magic comes easily to him. Could he control the physical boost technique using his Satal magic? He realizes he's been blindly trying to maintain a constant flow for physical boosting. But what if instead he only strikes with it at key moments? What if he could layer his support magic onto each move with the right timing? He calls out to Teresi. Kinato asks Teresi to spar with him. Calling him a fool, she accepts. She leaps into action, launching a powerful attack. He realizes the main thing to focus on is the physical boost and how to use his Satal magic to support it. Teresi tells him to adjust as she attacks, and Kinato successfully blocks her kick. She is astonished that he blocked her move. He excitedly explains he used the same technique as during Macarenge to counter a kick meant to send him flying. Overjoyed and impressed, Teresi tells him he did well, amazed he could block it. Jean's voice reminds them to make casual contact like a hug, but Kinato is confused by Teresi's attempt. Her idea of a hug is a bone-crushing squeeze for Kinato, as she concludes that physical contact is difficult. In a fond memory, a young Teresi dances with her mother who praises her, calling her a natural. Teresi recalls her mother's teaching that the Macarenge is a dance where two people's hearts become one. She explains that while it's understandable for a minority group to be exclusive, her mother believed it was important to learn about others if they wanted to be understood. However, she notes that her grandmother would likely disapprove of that idea. Startled, Kinato and Teresi unexpectedly meet at the outdoor bath. He nervously wishes her a good morning, explaining that he just finished his training. Teresi is shocked speechless, clutching her towel as she realizes there are only 2 days left in the month-long trial. Her mind races at the thought of physical contact. Teresi places a hand on Kinato's shoulder, much to his confusion. She suddenly slugs him in the chest, sending him reeling. He coughs, accusing her of hitting him just because she doesn't like him. She ignores his complaint, observing that not only does he have more guts, but his physique has improved as well. Kinato bashfully thanks her, as Teresi notes that it's been almost a month since he came here. She confesses she didn't think he would survive this long, remembering how weak he used to be. Since he's still there, Teresi invites him to the Lunar Fighting Festival tonight. She cheerfully tells him not to be shy and to soak with her. A blushing Kinato, wondering how he ended up in this situation, stammers that he still has room for improvement with his physical boost technique. Teresi's mood turns somber as she realizes that they will be saying goodbye soon. She mentions that her mother, who was the previous chief, taught her the Macarenge and she tries to live her life like her. Teresi explains that her mother disagreed with her grandmother's principles. While her grandmother sought conflict, her mother wanted to be tolerant. She describes her grandmother as hot-blooded and at times cruel. Because she trusted her mother, Teresi says her own path came naturally to her. However, she admits that lately she's realized she isn't capable of being like her mother, lacking her capacity, strength, and spirit. She apologizes for telling him all this, dismissing it by saying their ties will soon disappear anyway. Kanato looks at her seriously and declares that the ties between them won't disappear and he would never let them. He tells her that the feelings are the same as the ones she has for her mother. The time you spend with someone and the memories you share become etched into who you are, even if you are apart. He concludes that no matter where you are, you're still connected. Teresi quietly processes his words, simply saying, "I see." Teresi panics internally, wondering what to do. Her mind jumps to a conclusion: he just proposed to her. Her panic stems from a previous conversation where she had asked Jean what marriage is. Jean had explained it as a vow of love where two people promise to spend their lives together, even risking their lives for one another. The words echo in her mind, a vow of love connected to each other no matter where they are. She thinks this is way beyond mere physical contact, and her eyes swirl with confusion. As Kanato tries to get her attention about the lunar fighting festival, he is cut short. Overwhelmed, Teresi sinks beneath the surface of the water, much to Kanato's shock. A brilliant halo forms around the moon. When this halo encircles the moon, the Majo village is illuminated more brightly than usual. This event happens only once every 10 years. The moon's halo appears as a double ring, and the village is swept up in the excitement of an age-old tradition. It is a grand festival where the Majo display their pride and test the full measure of their power. The lunar fighting festival is underway, and a combatant takes a hard punch to the face. Grunting, she slides back from the force of the blow but manages to stay on her feet. Spitting, she glares at her opponent undeterred. Another punch lands with a loud crack, sending spray from the impact. The crowd goes wild, shouting for the fighters to go all out and not give up. Through demonstrations and sparring matches, the Majo showcase their skills, spurring each other to greater heights. Jean and his friend watch the intense proceedings from the crowd. Suddenly, the moderator, Rekka, appears above them, apologizing for the wait. She winks, announcing that the highlight of the lunar fighting festival, the Majo Hunt, is about to begin. Jean asks about the Majo Hunt, and Rekka explains that tonight, Skydragon is illuminated by the double lunar halos. All 5 districts will serve as the stage for the event. Rekka lays out the rules. Majo will be sent out at random to hunt each other. Incapacitating an opponent earns 1 point and the first to 20 points wins. Anything goes short of killing. Jean thinks it sounds fun, remarking that anything besides killing is allowed. Suddenly, a large creature grabs both him and his startled friend. Rekka explains that participating Majo will fight their way through qualifying rounds. They will be joined by the captains of the guard for each district. She adds that if you manage to take down one of the captains, you can earn the right to replace them. Rekka then consults her notes, mentioning a special exception has been made this year. To everyone's surprise, she announces that after receiving permission from all participants, Lady Teresi herself will be joining. Jean's friend screams as he's flown away by the creature. Teresi announces that after agonizing over the matter, this was the only way she could settle everyone's grievances. She declares that she will allow the criminal Jean and her sworn partner Kanato to participate. Kanato is utterly bewildered by the announcement. The Majo captains are equally stunned. The crowd murmurs in confusion, asking what a sworn partner is and if the two are in a relationship. Looking at Kanato, Teresi says this is his chance to show everyone his training, adding that as her future companion, he'd better win or she'll be very disappointed. Kanato can only stammer in confusion. In the crowd, the Majo quickly realize that companion means a mated pair. Outraged cries erupt, claiming the filthy man has seduced Lady Teresi and ordering everyone to target him. The Majo captains, filled with rage, declare that the minute they find Kanato, they're going to kill him. Jean, now free, teases Kanato, impressed he got this far. Kanato lands roughly in the bushes, groaning in pain. Rekka announces that both the criminal Jean and the sworn partner Kanato are worth 10 points each. The Majo are pleased they don't have to search for him, calling his crime of taking advantage of Lady Teresi worthy of 1,000 deaths. Kanato frantically tries to explain that he has no idea what Teresi is talking about, realizing there's only one thing to do now. As he backs away from the advancing Majo, it becomes clear, the Majo hunt is now a man-hunt. The Majo immediately unleash a massive, coordinated blast of energy at Kanato. The attacking Majo are shocked by the power of their own attack. An onlooker shouts in surprise. Kanato activates his Seitai boost, leaping out of the way of the explosion just in time. Rekka is stunned, exclaiming that he dodged the attack. Teresi watches him go, a pleased all right.